Okay, Chair, we are now streaming live on YouTube, and I'll hand the meeting over to you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to East Devon District Council's Cabinet meeting for the 6th of January 2021. Everybody, a Happy New Year. I am the chair for this evening, Councillor Paul Arnott, and I'd like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via live streaming on YouTube as well. Everybody here today is taking part remotely, and the meeting is being recorded, so please bear this in mind throughout and be careful with language and abide to the code of conduct. If there's any disruption, we reserve the right to disconnect by whatever means, and please could you turn your telephone devices off or to silent. I will as ever do mine. As this cabinet meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, if we lose that, we'll do our best to get back online within 15 minutes, but if we're not able to reconnect, we will have to adjourn and reconvene, and there will be details of that subsequent meeting on our website. Please, if you could keep your mics muted when you're not speaking, and I'll be grateful as ever to keep points short and avoid repetition and indeed interruption. If you do wish to comment, please raise your blue hand, your digital hand. Everybody's been sent the agenda for today's meeting, which can also be found at eastdevon.gov.uk. And we'll now start this meeting with a roll call of committee members. So committee, cabinet, can you please unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, confirm present by saying present, and then mute again. Back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Hayward.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Jackson.
Present, though how long for I'm not sure.
Councillor Young.
Present.
Councillor Ledger.
Present.
Councillor Loudon.
Present.
Councillor Rickson.
Present.
And Councillor Rowland.
Present. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you very much, Amanda, and for confirming our quoracy. We now go to the agenda. Agenda item 1 is public speaking, and we've got Councillor Matt Osborne representing Cranbrook Town. And I'm very happy, I've just discussed it with Councillor Osborne, that he comes up a bit later when we are actually on those Cranbrook issues, rather than just speaking 20 minutes beforehand. Going to agenda item 2 then, which is the minutes of the previous meeting of the 25th of November meetings and the 2nd of December 2020. If anybody has a comment, please raise your blue hand. And I can't see any blue hands raised, so in which case I'll take that as an indication that those minutes are agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 3. Debbie, can I come back to you for apologies, please?
It's Amanda, Chair, and I have apologies from councillors on your cabinet. I have apologies from Councillor Jess Bailey, and other councillors have sent in their apologies, which include Councillor Jarvis, Dent, Councillor Wright, that's Chris Wright, and Councillor Allen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. Sorry for the confusion. I don't know why I thought Debbie was doing that bit. Right, we'll now do a roll call led by Amanda of whether we have any declarations of interest on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Arnott.
None, Amanda.
Councillor Hayward.
I have a few, Amanda, thank you. I'll run through them one by one as slowly as I can. Item 20, as it directly affects the precept arrangements of 3 councils that employ me. That's a personal interest, not a pecuniary one. Item 22, I'm an executive committee member of Nourish, a community food group that exists to combat food poverty in East Devon. Items 24 and 25, as I have close family living on Cranbrook. Items 27, I'm a director of Exeter Science Park Limited by virtue of my role as portfolio holder for economy. Item 28, SIL and 106 issues directly affect my 3 employers, and they are All Saints Parish Council, Chardstock Parish Council, and Newton Poppleford and Hertford Parish Council. And finally, item 31, again, a personal interest, just to say for the record that I've been in correspondence with the lessee regarding this matter. And that has brought us to this position today, that it's on the Cabinet agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Could you just repeat your 3 employers for me? I missed the council.
Of course, yes. All Saints Parish Council, Chardstock Parish Council, and Newton Poppleford and Hertford Parish Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I've just got one personal interest. I have a family member who lives in Cranbrook, so that's item 24. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
None from me, thank you, Amanda.
Councillor Young.
None.
Councillor Ledger.
Just items 24 and 25. I'm a member of the Cranbrook Strategic Delivery Board, so it's just a personal. Thank you.
Councillor Loudon.
None, Amanda. Thank you.
Councillor Wixon.
None, thank you.
Councillor Rowland.
Item 27, Amanda, in connection with Exeter Science Park. I'm the East Devon District Council shareholder representative, so it's a personal interest.
Thank you.
I wonder if I could just speak, Chair.
Yes, please do.
I've got my hand raised. I'm sorry. I think I should have also said, Amanda, that it relates to item 25 as well, the Cranbrook interest. I'm sorry, I missed that off.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I've made a note of that.
Right, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Megan. Could you lower your blue, which was also yellow, excitingly. So we'll see how this goes tonight. Thank you, Amanda, very much for doing that. We now come to agenda item 5, which is to advise of late items or matters of emergency, urgency, not emergency, I'm glad to say. There are 3 items on that tonight. Item 19 is to receive the LED monitoring forum minutes of the 16th of December. And there's a decision arising from that. Agenda item 24, Cranbrook Town Centre, the decision on that as well. And also item 27, the Enterprise Zone, the amendment to the funding agreement for the Ada Lovelace building in Exeter Science Park. And there's a very welcome decision to be made on that. Going to agenda item 6, confidential or exempt items, and there are none that have been recommended by our officers to be dealt with in that way this evening. So agenda item 7, which is our forward plan. Now, all members present, what would be really helpful tonight with an extremely long agenda is, please, if you wish to speak on any of these items, just throw up your blue hand and I'll catch it. But I'd rather not keep having to go in and out of Cabinet on item after item. So anybody wants to go on the forward plan? I can't see any blue hands. So coming back into Cabinet, are we happy to note this item? Oh, I've got Councillor Gazzard there with a hand up. Steve, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm having a problem with the new system. Yeah. On the forward plan, and I don't know whether you can answer this, Chair. You've got toilet review, and I'm just conscious that parish councils are going to be setting their precepts within the next week or so. Are you looking to offload some of the toilets? Because if that's the case and you want parish councils to take them on, it's going to be too late for them to include that in their precepts, if that's the case. But perhaps I'm jumping the gun, so I do apologise.
Not at all, Councillor Gazzard, thank you. I think possibly Councillor Hayward or Councillor Young might be able to help with that. Paul, can you help there at all? Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Hayward, sorry.
Not, I mean, I'm more than happy, you know, to correspond with Councillor Gazard, but on the spur of the moment, no, unfortunately.
Okay, sorry, that was a bit of a hospital pass there, wasn't it?
If it helps, Leader, I can.
Yeah, Henry doesn't only help. You come forward
sure.
with a bucket.
So
yes,
it's been carried over a number of times, but because it's sort of in quotes imminent and sort of pending work, that's why it continues to appear on the forward plan. As I understand it, there isn't an active piece of work at this particular moment of time, but it's coming. So yes, I appreciate that there may be concerns, but this has been on there now for a number of months and it's just been carried over.
Okay. All right. Thanks for raising that, Steve. That was, yes. So saving that, Councillor Jeff Young, please.
Yeah, just to confirm that it is coming to Cabinet shortly. It's going to be going out for consultation. There's going to be long deliberations, and a lot of it is to do with the COVID safety of the toilets and the losses that we've incurred on toilets for the last year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor, very much for that. Okay, so Cabinet, are we happy to note those? Unless somebody wants to pull up a blue hand or shout, I'm happy to just say we are happy to note those. Yes, we are happy with the forward plan. Thank you. So agenda item 8, minutes of the Queen's Drive delivery group held on the 17th of November 2020. And we have a couple of recommendations from that. I realise, Amanda, I should have declared an interest, shouldn't I? Because I'm currently chairing that group as well. So apologies for doing that slightly belatedly. We have minute 11 from that meeting, which is that Cabinet agrees to include the development and management of the Ocean building in the terms of reference for the Queen's Drive delivery group. And we have minute 14, which is a report outlining considerations for temporary uses for 2021. And that has 2 significant things coming forward. First, not to proceed with the temporary car park down there, which has been there for, I think, 18 months, and to provide clearer signage to the other car parks on Exmouth Seafront. And the second action is to instruct Tim Child to research and report back on alternative options for use of that temporary car park land, or that leisure land, as we should really call it, in consultation with Councillor Chris Wright and Councillor Nick Hookway. Chris and Nick were selected by the committee because of their specific knowledge. They were within the committee and their specific knowledge of those seafront entertainments. So would anybody like to comment on that at all from outside of Cabinet? If not, I'll come in. Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to really keep it short and sweet, I'm happy to propose the recommendations for approval, basically, from the delivery board.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like to speak, or would anybody like to second that from Cabinet? Councillor Jack Rowland.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. In which case, can I ask if anybody within Cabinet would want to vote against that? Please speak. Otherwise, we will take those as agreed. Okay, thank you very much. Henry, is it okay for me to do it like that without going to a vote every single time? You're on mute, Henry, sorry. You're still on mute.
Sorry, getting back into the spirit of it all. Yeah. Yes, negative confirmation is fine. All I would say is that if it gets a particularly sensitive or contentious item, then perhaps if I can ask you to do it by formal vote rather than the negative confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you for that advice. Very kind. Thank you. Right, we have agenda item 9 is the minutes of the South and East Devon Habitats Regulations Executive Committee, which was held on the 18th of November 2020. Any comments or remarks from outside Cabinet? Welcome, or if not, inside. So can I take it, unless there is anybody giving a negative confirmation, that we are happy to agree these minutes? I see no negatives, in which case those minutes are also agreed. Agenda item 10, the minutes of the car parking task and finish forum from the 19th of November and the 26th of November 2020. This is always a sensitive one, so we'll take this at easy pace. Councillor Eleanor Rylance, please.
Thank you, Leader. I did actually have a question, because I thought we had agreed not to raise the car parking charges this spring. I thought we'd agreed to do something else with it, but I noticed that in the 26th of November minutes, that appears. So I just wonder whether anybody else who was on the car parking task can remember what we actually said, because I didn't think that's what we'd said. I don't know if Andrew's here, whether he can remember.
Okay, thanks, Eleanor. I think Councillor Rowland might be able to help with that, because I'd asked him to have a look at this. Jack, are you there?
I certainly am, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah.
Although I'm not a member now of that car park TAF, I did actually attend that meeting, and I did make some notes. And I can confirm that from the notes that I made, that by a vote of 5-2 against, it was agreed that the Category 1 car park charges would be recommended to increase from £1 per hour to £1.20 per hour, with effect from this April.
Okay, and then I think the other, as far as I remember it, Eleanor, the other car parks were being subject to further thought. I think that's correct. Okay, thank you very much for raising that. Thank you for that clarification, Jack, as well. Anybody else like to speak on that?
Chair, if I may, sorry, I should have put my yellow hand. I think they're yellow hands now, but if I put my hand, just to explain, it was a recommendation to scrutiny, and scrutiny have made an onward recommendation to council, and it will be considered by council at the February meeting. So it isn't confirmed as such, but it's for further decision later on down the line.
Absolutely right. Thank you, Henry. It is not our decision. It is due to the change in the constitution last year, which was appropriate. It is full council's decision. So I take it that we're happy to agree these minutes. Yes, we are. Thank you very much. In which case we move on to agenda item 11, the minutes of the Asset Management Forum held on the 1st of December 2020. Now, again, if anybody would like to speak on those, please, blue, yellow hand, or whatever colour is to hand. That's all looking quiet out in the wild, and it's also looking quiet on Cabinet as well. In which case, can I take it, Cabinet, that we're happy to agree these minutes? Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's really just to cover the points raised under item 41, the community asset transfer policy, where the resolution was that the consultation with town and parish councils commences in January, February as resources permit, but committed to commence before the next AMF meeting. Needless to say, we're all back where we were, last March. So I'll be working with Mr. Child to try and push that along. But as members of Cabinet and Council and members of the public will understand, a lot of resources are being thrown elsewhere, quite understandably. So there might have to be some latitude. But, I know this is something that's been requested by parish and town councils. So we'll be pressing ahead with it as fast as we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hayward, for that information and helpful comment. Members, are we happy then to agree these minutes? Do please indicate if you're not. I see no to the negative, in which case those minutes are also agreed. Agenda item 12 now, which is the minutes of the budget setting and capital allocations panel, which was held on the 1st of December 2020, and there is of course a recommendation for Cabinet that will resolve in an action being taken. I'm not going to read out the great list of I can't think how many it is. It must be nearly 20 projects that have been put forward for financing. But it's there. We're also asked to agree that in consultation with the portfolio holder, evidence is sought on level of use of the Greenway Lane footbridge and an alternative solution to the existing bridge be researched, that the Brixton open space enhancement amends the location of outdoor gym equipment to a cluster arrangement, and that Exmouth Fair Park shelter bid of 25,000 be rejected, and instruct officers to explore the use of anti-graffiti paint on the current structure. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks. I would just like to move recommendations 1 to 4, and item 1 obviously includes A to V in connection with all of the capital programme schedule. So I'd like to formally move that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Loudon, please.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, John. Anybody else like to have a go in that? In which case we've had a proposer and a seconder, so we should take that to a vote. Amanda, can you lead us through that, please?
So, Chair, I'll do that for you. It's Debbie.
Debbie, do.
That's all right. I believe the green tick is still a green tick despite the Zoom upgrade.
Okay.
So, members of Cabinet, if you can please choose your green tick or your red cross, or raise your what was a blue hand if you're abstaining from this vote on minute 9, numbers 1 to 4, please. Thank you. For the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place quite slowly in this case.
Yeah, I can't get anywhere near anything apart from sticking a hand up, which I don't think you can see. We might have to do this sort of... Oh, I've stuck a yellow hand.
Is it not under the 3 dots, Leader?
Not on mine.
Yeah, it is there.
Yeah.
I have to say my green hand keeps going, coming and going.
It disappears very quickly, even when you've ticked on it.
Well, Debbie, shall we accept yellow hands or green ticks as affirmatives then tonight?
Well, I think, Chair, we best shift to. It's just a shame that we don't have that third option for abstention, isn't it? If we shift to blue hands, then members, please. I'm going to clear the green ticks that have been managed. Thank you. So, members of the Cabinet, if you could raise your what is now, I believe, a yellow hand.
Mine's still blue.
I can't find my yellow hand. Oh, blinding.
So I have 8 votes so far. And Councillor Loudon, I'm assuming if you can't find it, you are voting in favour. Is that correct?
Yes,
you have a yellow hand instead. So, Chair, sorry for the confusion, but with a combination of hands in various colours that we have, that is unanimously agreed by the Cabinet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just if it's useful, on my iPad, I have a yellow hand, and on my old laptop, I've got a blue hand. So there we go. You know. And you're putting them down now. Thank you very much. Right, let us recover our equilibrium and go to agenda item 13, which is the minutes of the Arts and Culture Forum held on the 3rd of December 2020. May I ask if there are any comments from outside Cabinet on that? Or if not, can we please, unless there are negatives, accept those minutes as agreed? No blue hands or yellow hands came forth, and therefore those minutes are also agreed. We now go to agenda item 15, the minutes of the full council held on the 9th of December 2020. There's a recommendation for Cabinet that will resolve in an action being taken. which is minute 114, poverty strategy and actions. We will, of course, come to that later as well, because Mr. Golding will give us a report on that. So for the moment, all we're being asked to do is agree the minutes. Yes, Councillor Armstrong, please.
Yes, thank you. I think, Chair, you may have missed out item 14, minutes of the Poverty Working Panel.
Oh, I did. Thank you very much. I'll come back to that then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So are we happy to agree the minutes of council with that minute included, given that we will come to discuss that a little bit further on? If everybody's happy with that, I take those minutes as agreed. Coming back up to agenda item 14, thank you, Megan. The minutes of the Poverty Working Panel held on the 11th of November and the 7th of December 2020. Again, the question is, are members happy to agree these minutes, unless there is somebody from outside Cabinet who wishes to speak on this? Nobody at this stage. In which case, Cabinet, is anybody not content to agree? Please raise a hand if you're not content. Nothing showing there, in which case those minutes are also agreed. We then come on to the agenda item 16, minutes of scrutiny committee held on the 10th of November 2020. We have one recommendation for Cabinet that will resolve in an action being taken, and that is minute 103, the Sustainable Homes and Communities Portfolio Holder Report, that all councillors should receive training on how to ask constructive questions to address the matter in hand, so the meeting can move on at a constructive and timely manner. So members will remember that arose from not entirely happy scrutiny meeting. That seems very sensible. Councillor Sarah Jackson first, please.
Hi, sorry, thank you, Chair. Let me know if my network's breaking up. You can hear me? Good. I've had a concern raised regarding those minutes not being quite accurate, although I believe the recommendations are. Is there any way to progress those recommendations and go back and listen to the recording and ensure that the rest of the minutes are correct, or would it all need to be deferred in order to address that?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Yes, I've been made aware of that as well. Henry, we have a member who is not happy that what's recorded in the minutes as having been said, although it doesn't, as Sarah Jackson has just said, change the direction or indeed the actual minute itself. What can we do there? And what we'd like to do is have those minutes just looked at again and look at the recording and see if it is accurate. How can we do that?
Well, if the person concerned can or either of you can drop the clerk an email or me, and we can look at that. But I mean, actually, it is for the scrutiny committee itself to approve its minutes. So you're not necessarily approving the content. I mean, the recommendation is what you're really
absolutely
picking up here. So the validity or the accuracy of the minutes is actually for scrutiny itself. Okay. But if they can drop us an email in the meantime, we can look into that.
Great, that's very helpful. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Henry, for that. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you skipped over agenda item 15, which is the minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of December, before moving to 16.
Yes, no, we agreed those because that.
Did you? I beg your pardon.
Yeah, no, I know. It's getting.
Obviously, wasn't paying proper attention at that point. I do apologise.
Yeah, no, I know. Listen, we've only just begun, as the carpenters used to say. So, although we're nearly halfway through the agenda, if that helps anybody with their desire to still draw breath. Right. So, in which case, is everybody happy to agree those minutes of scrutiny, and I take that As a yes, they are. Thank you very much. So next we get to agenda item 17, the minutes of the Housing Company Task and Finish Forum held on the 14th of December 2020. One recommendation for Cabinet that will result in action being taken, which comes from minute 14, the options and lines of inquiry to deliver more affordable social housing. Can I come to Councillor Sam Hawkins on that first, please?
Thank you. I just wanted to speak in regards to recommendation 3, the housing company remaining dormant. The current cost to the housing company, to the council, is £40 a year in terms of company house filing and obviously officer time on that. If you look at the register at Company's House at the moment, you'll see the PSC file is still out of date. I can see we filed correctly, but Company's House haven't actioned stuff. We've still got a director who was the former deputy chief executive registered. My concern with the PSC is that's criminal liability, and we could lose 4 very senior officers to Her Majesty's pleasure if you take that to its most extremity, because it's not up to date. So this is quite a big distraction, very serious consequences for the sake of keeping a number. Let's spend £10, get rid of the company until we need it and restore it when we can. If we want to change the articles, we can change them with the company without it. If we like the articles, we can just copy and paste what already exists. So I'd like to think that if we made the company dormant, that's better value for money, and we keep our 3 senior members of staff this side of prison gates. Thank you.
Right. And you'll be offering your re-registration of company service at good rates, I trust, as well, Councillor Hawkins.
It's free if you do it properly.
Okay, yeah, it is. That's true. Right, well, that's a pretty powerful suggestion there from Councillor Hawkins. So we need to go through these one by one then, really, don't we? The first is that the housing company TAF be renamed and repurposed to another more suitable name to fulfil the vision of moving the TAF forwards, to focus on social housing need delivery mechanisms and financing mechanisms. So obviously we're not doing that tonight, but that seems like a reasonable idea, unless anybody wishes to say anything to the contrary or comment. The second is that a working party of members be established to work with officers approaching and learning from other authorities who have grown their housing revenue account stock in recent years, before then reporting back to the housing company TAF. This would then inform the TAF as to recommended resources focusing on relevant mechanisms and finance required to proceed. So is everybody happy with that as well? That looks like a yes. Item 3, that the housing company should remain dormant. So Cabinet, I don't know if any of you were paying heed to Councillor Hawkins' very constructive comments there. I mean, what do we think we should do about that? Or yes, let's ask for Mr. Gordon-Lennox, Henry, to come and advise us first.
I'm so sorry. I mean, clapping my hands, waving my hands. I keep pressing the wrong button. Sorry. I was simply trying to raise it. I'm doing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yes, it was only just to say that as far as the renaming is concerned, I mean, it just struck me that the easy answer is just to remove the word company, and then it's just a housing TAF.
Yeah.
For one, and then in terms of the second recommendation, perhaps rather than a working group, whether the portfolio holder, in the capacity as chair here at least, may wish to convene his portfolio holder team for that purpose. It struck me that might be quite a neat solution to it as well. So those are my 2 suggestions, Chair.
Okay, those are right. We'll need to go back on that then. Councillor John Loudon, were you going to say anything about that?
Not on those 2 items, on the third one. So I'm happy to wait, Chair, if you wish.
Okay. I'm feeling as if, in a way, the housing company TAF should be making these decisions for itself, in a sense, about its renaming. But are they asking us, Henry, to choose a new name for them? Is that effectively what that minute's asking?
I think it is, because the Cabinet set up the housing company TAF, so I think that's why it's come back to you as a recommendation.
Okay. Right. Well, very helpfully, Henry's got the idea of deleting the word company from that. Has anybody got any other better ideas? I must confess this one hasn't detained me unduly in the last couple of weeks. No. Well, then can I propose from the chair that we call it the housing TAF from now on? Is that seconded?
Happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. So we better go to a vote on that one item then, please. On one, that we rename the housing company TAF the housing TAF. So over to you. I've lost track whether it's Debbie or Amanda doing this.
It's Debbie doing the voting. Okay, so it looks like we're back to the blue hand. So cabinet members, if you can raise your blue hand, please. I can see some puzzled faces and some smiling faces.
We haven't got. I haven't got a blue hand. I've got a yellow hand.
You have, Megan. You have, Megan, because you've raised it.
Oh. I'm not sure where it is.
This is getting very confusing because on my screen
there's a green yes. There's a green yes tick.
Yeah, I've got a green tick back now as well.
And there's a yellow raised hand.
A yellow and a blue.
Your hand is raised at the moment.
It's a yellow hand. It's not a blue hand. That's what I'm saying.
Chair, I have 8 votes for at the moment. That gives us a majority. Should we go with that one?
I think so. The rainbow of colours, and we'll certainly
we'll
deal with this.
Thank you, Chair. I'll get those lowered.
Right, lovely. Thank you. Please do.
Is this down to a Zoom downgrade rather than an upgrade?
Certainly something's happened, hasn't it? I think I saw.
Oh,
now Henry's frozen.
Lost Henry.
Henry's.
This is going well.
That's it. Okay. Well, so I think, yes, I think there's been an upload, a download, a patch, an improvement. Something's happened on Zoom, and this is the consequence. But we're still able to perform our democratic duty, so that's the main thing. So on the second item, then, that a working party be established, and Henry's now back just in time, I think, to remind us of his suggestion for that on the second item there.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure what happened there with the connection. Yes, it was only that rather than the working group, that the portfolio holder uses his portfolio holder team for that purpose.
Okay. Dan Ledger.
It would be fantastic, but I don't have a portfolio holder team.
Well, we need to set one up.
Yeah. It's but my portfolio strategic planning, and this crosses over with Megan's. I think personally it might just be easier just to have one member for politically balanced from each group, and that form the working party.
Okay, so that's a proposal. Yes, Megan, please.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think can it just not be set up, Henry, the same as my own housing portfolio team? So it's a representative. It has to be politically balanced. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, it is. And effectively, I go around and seek nomination. So either way, whether it's a group of members, a small group of members, or a portfolio holder team, it's the same process effectively. But it's just another group to constitute, and using our existing framework, it struck me was the right approach. But if Councillor Ledger and Cabinet are happy with a slightly smaller group with the group leader, or a member from each group, then that's fine.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on the numbers, doesn't it? It depends on how big you want it. Yeah. Yeah.
It does seem a bit odd that the TAF, who are the people who are most experts in this, are asking, in a sense, for yet another little mini group to be set up to do a piece of work. You'd have thought they'd be exactly the right people to do. I mean, I'd have thought it should be from members who are within that TAF already on a politically balanced group to do that, surely. What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable, and it does make sense.
Okay, back to. Can I come to Tim Child next, and then to Dan?
Thank you. Yeah, just to provide a bit of context. It was. We'd always anticipated it would be a small group of members within the TAF that we could, whether it be in person or virtually, meet with other authorities who've grown their housing stock without sort of trawling along all of the TAF members to a gigantic meeting. So certainly the anticipation was it would be members within the TAF, but probably just 3 or 4, really small group.
That's great, Tim. Thank you so much. Yeah, that makes much more sense, doesn't it? So in a sense, what we're able to do is just simply accept that recommendation as it is, because then we're saying, yeah, go on, TAF, you do that, and the next meeting they then choose who they want to be on it, and presumably in a politically balanced way. So I think we can take that one as agreed, actually, as it's currently written, unless anybody wants to throw up a hand. No. So coming to John Loudon, please, for 3, the housing company in the should remain dormant.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered whether this might at some point in the future be a sensitive issue, and therefore maybe we ought to vote on it. That was my proposal, particularly bearing in mind we're trying to keep our senior officers out of jail, so yes, we might want to be seen to be standing alongside them.
Okay, that seems like a very good idea indeed. So John, are you proposing then that actually we should ask for that the housing company should just be closed down? That's what we're suggesting, isn't it?
I was following on from Councillor Hawkins.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
I just wanted to simply second what's just been put forward.
Okay, all right. So Debbie, let's take a vote on this by whatever means possible.
Okay, Cabinet members, if you could please raise your blue hand for the vote in favour. And for the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. I have 8 for the proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I keep raising a yellow hand, and I've got a feeling you're not seeing them, are you?
I'm seeing a blue hand for you at the moment.
Oh, you are.
Chair.
You can see it. I can't see that, but you can see it. Right. Fantastic. Good. Okay. Hands lowered, please. Thank you very much. So that is that one. Brilliant. So we go now to agenda item 18, which will be the minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee held on the 15th of December 2020. Now, what I want to do is bring up the item 24 into this discussion as well, because the decision that was made at Strategic Planning Committee to put this to us tonight comes to us tonight. So we may as well have the discussion at the same time, because they are basically the same thing. In which case, and so the
leader, can I just say, normally you would just defer, you would just note this for further consideration at the relevant item.
Okay, all right, we can do that then. Well, that's Cranbrook, so then I'm happy to do that if other members are happy to do that as well. We do need, which is a separate one, the Minute 95, a local development scheme, and that is that the Cabinet approve the proposed new local development scheme as outlined at strategic planning. So again, happy to...
And that's the same, Chair, that minutes 95 and 97 are both item 23.
They are both 23, in which case let's do that at 23. Garden communities, that's not coming up later, Henry, is it?
No, that's for the decision tonight, but it will need to be if Cabinet agree, it will be an onward recommendation to Council because of the budgetary implications. Okay, understood. In which case, members, are you happy to agree minute 100, that part of the minutes there? Okay, or rather, if anybody is against, Councillor Hayward.
I'm just agreeing, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Unless there's anybody to the negative, I'll take those minutes as agreed. Thank you very much. In the unlikely event I forget to bring these matters up later on, somebody please remind me. Agenda item 19 now, the minutes of the LED Monitoring Forum held on the 16th of December 2020. We have one recommendation for Cabinet that will resolve in an action being taken, and that is to do with taking external advice for the EDDC leisure strategy and auditing of LED monthly claims. And the recommendation is that members pursue a new leisure strategy. I understand what's behind that. That wording seems a little vague. I don't know. I just wonder, can I ask Councillor Hawkins, maybe as chair of that committee, is that in accord with what do you believe came out of that meeting as well? Is that wording okay?
Yeah, I think so. The ledger strategy was around the previous one we're working on. It's about 15 years old, so massively out of date. And I think we were trying to work out how to get a new one restarted, and it was best decided through Cabinet to kickstart that process.
Brilliant, thanks, Sam. Okay, that's very clear. Cabinet, any comments on that? Or if not, are you happy to agree these minutes? Please indicate to the negative. If you're not, everybody seems content, in which case those minutes are also agreed. Thank you very much. Right, now, matters for decision, key decisions, agenda item 20, the council tax base for 2021 to 2022. And we'll have a report here from our service lead for revenues, benefits, customer services and corporate fraud, Libby Jarrett. Libby, over to you, please.
If I can take that, Chair, it's Simon Davey.
Well, it says Libby Jarrett here, Simon, but I did wonder why it was Libby. Okay, yes, I'm not. Here's Simon Davey. Over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Not much to add in that it's a prescribed calculation. It goes forward then in terms of the calculations needed in the budget and setting the council tax. But yeah, I'm happy to take questions, but it is a set calculation that's made on a certain date.
Okay, thank you, Simon, very much for that. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks. I would simply like to move the two recommendations that have been made because I think they're fairly straightforward and self-explanatory.
Thank you. And is that Councillor John Loudon seconding that? Thank you, Councillor Loudon. Let's go to a vote on that then, please, Debbie.
Okay, so members of the Cabinet, if you can please raise your blue hand or yellow hand. For the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. And that is carried, Chair. Thank you, with 8 votes.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for that. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Jack. We now come to agenda item 21, the draft revenue and capital budgets for 2021-22. Now, again, it says here a report from Simon Davies, Strategic Lead Finance, and John Symes, Finance Manager. Guys, surprise me.
I'm not sure I will surprise you, Chair. It's me.
Okay, that'll do.
So I will take you through a little bit of detail, if that's okay, Cabinet. Just to remind you of process. So the draft budget's coming to you tonight for you to adopt, but then it goes out to overview, scrutiny and the Housing Review Board. Their recommendations will come back to your next meeting when you can then make your final recommendations to Council. So just to remind you of the process. If I just quickly go through each of the areas, if we look at the general fund budget first, which starts as item 2, there's a little bit of background there in the report talking about the spending review. So that's where the government allocates its monies to different departments, including MHCLG. Then there's a little bit of discussion regarding the finance settlement that came to us on the 17th of December. So that's the individual allocations that government give to each local authority. Those were very late, but have been picked up in this report. So the numbers that came through on the 17th of December were updated in this agenda for you. So if we now turn to the actual 21-22 budget in a bit of detail, the projected deficit we were starting at in terms of balancing your budget for next year, according to the medium-term financial plan, was in the order of 700,000. And actually going through the detailed calculation, that became a good prediction in terms of what we were looking for when we did the detail. In terms of meeting that deficit, we took through a number of proposals in terms of savings and additional income to bridge that gap. We took that through the budget setting and capital allocations panel and discussed various items within that. That was also endorsed by Cabinet, and also those areas were raised at overview and scrutiny committees, both of them when we talked about the financial plan and medium-term financial strategy. So elements that came forward in terms of balancing the budget are now included in the budget in order that we can present to you tonight for you to adopt a balanced budget where income is met by expenditure. I'll talk about those items in a little bit more detail further in the report. So in 2.8 of the report, you have the general fund budget summary. So on page 126 of the agenda, there's a table that summarises your general fund position. It outlines the budget proposal for each of your portfolios, compares that to last year. And the key figure to look at is at the bottom of that table. All the numbers come back to a council tax requirement of 9,119,550. So if you agree your council tax rise that's in your report, you'll have a balanced budget. Below that table are some high-level variations, year-on-year variations for you to note. And then the item in 2.10 of the report on page 127 are those areas that have helped us balance the budget, those actions that we've taken. There are only two that I really want to highlight, and they're the bigger numbers, if you like. Within the medium-term financial plan, I assumed that there'd be a 2% pay rise across all staff. In reality now, under the local government spending review, there's only an increase now for those staff on 24,000 or below. So factoring that into our budget has reduced our costs by 218,000. And the other one I want to mention is in the draft budget, it has been assumed that we will raise an additional 300,000 from car parking charges. I'll come on to the risks of that later in the report, but at the moment, just to highlight to you, the recommendations at the time from the car parking TAF summed up to an increase that generated an extra 300,000, which has been included in the budget to give us that balanced position. Those were the items I want to mention on there. In 2.11 of your report, I've just highlighted to Cabinet some of the key areas of expenditure which link to the Council's new statement of intent. So I've picked up the carbon reduction measures, just highlighting nearly $250,000 being spent again in terms of areas there, in terms of the action plan. The areas that cover addressing poverty and sort of the funding that we have included in the budget for those areas. Also, the last bullet point on page 129, there's a number of bullet points that flow on page 129, 130, where specific budgets have been included, mainly staff related, that address key issues that have been highlighted. The majority of these have been subject to separate reports to Cabinet and Council and been approved and now have been put into your draft budget for next year. Or they can be funded from other means, and I've highlighted that in the bullet points. Where new items have come in for the first time and are not funded, attached to the report in terms of the linked documents are little mini business cases in terms of why that money is being asked for, in terms of staff resources. So members can look through there to see the reasoning that officers have put forward for those additional resources. But just to highlight, at the moment, within your draft budget, all these items are included and make up that balanced budget. If we move on down the report, just to highlight to you in 2.14 of the report, the council tax rise that's been included is the £5 a year. So raising the council tax from £146.78 a year to £151.78. That's a 3.4% increase. We've had that confirmed in the spending review that that's the limit set by government before a referendum is triggered. And also, just for information, that's the amount of money assumed by government that East Devon will raise in council tax in its overall calculations. So in 2.15, I wanted to talk about our general fund balance. So the general fund balance, we have an adopted range that we keep there for emergencies. It's between 3 million and 3.8 million. The draft budget keeps that at the adopted level, but just to highlight to you, we believe at the end of the current financial year, because of what we're having to spend on COVID in the main, our general fund balance will be at the bottom of that range. It'll be close to 3 million. So there's not a lot of scope in terms of taking from that general fund balance before you dip below your adopted level. And the reason I'm highlighting that is in 2.15, I've highlighted a number of risks, key risks in terms of the budget that's being presented to highlight to you areas that haven't been included in the budget, but could come as a call on the general fund in year. So the first one I want to chat about is the implications of COVID-19. So in setting next year's budget, 21-22, I've made the assumption that income will be at pre-COVID levels, expenditure will be at pre-COVID levels. We've gone through the budget preparation as if the extra costs and reduction in income that we've seen in the current year won't affect us for next year. The reason I've made that assumption is a number of aspects. One is we've seen our income recover fairly quickly. Even in lockdown, we've seen our car parks increase in terms of charges. So we're almost back onto budget levels. But also the main mitigation for allowing us to do that within the budget is government schemes. So the government has said that it will continue with the income loss guarantee scheme for the first quarter of 21-22. So if we do see our income still lower or drop in that period, the government will reimburse us 75% of that lost income. And also in the spending review, we've been given an allocation next year as a COVID grant of 616,000. So there's two key mitigations there that give me the ability to say to you, in terms of COVID, I think there are mitigations in there that cover that off. The next area I wanted to highlight to you is that car park income of 300,000 that's included in the budget. Now, in the debate that went to scrutiny, a recommendation was made direct to council regarding the car park increases. That decision won't be made until February council, which is the same time the budget goes to council. So members will be deciding on the car park increases at the same time the budget goes. So at that stage, I won't know, and you won't know, Cabinet, what will be the outcome of that in terms of the budget. So what I'm suggesting is there was a consideration of scrutiny that the increase of charges was probably the correct thing to do in terms of what was being proposed, but whether the timing was right in terms of on the back of a pandemic and sort of the impact that it might have in key town centres. So there was discussion of perhaps that the car park charges, it could be agreed to be increased, but there would be a delay in terms of implementation. If that's the case with the budget, then I think there's good prudence, good financial management to say, okay, we know that increase is coming, but it's coming at a certain date. So we could take that money from balances just to tide us over. However, if a decision at council is not to increase the charges, I would recommend that I bring back a further paper to you about how we amend the 21-22 budget to make good that £300,000, in that basically your budget going forward would be set on an artificial level that's 300,000 too short and would be there going forward year after year in an issue that we already know we have a problem in balancing our medium-term financial plan. So that's my recommendation to you at this stage, is we won't know until it goes to council, but if charges aren't agreed at all, then a further paper comes back to you about how we meet that gap. The other key risk in the budget is in connection with LED. We know the position in the current year, and we'll have further updates through the forum in terms of the council has set aside 1.3 million additional subsidy to help LED. The recent lockdown, the new forum will get an update of the implications of that. But in relation to next year's budget, 21-22, The budget has been set at the continued subsidy level of 898,000. We already know from LED that if we wish, that they're suggesting we wish to continue with our existing service provision for leisure, that they will be looking for an increase in next year's service level fee. That ranged, depending on how the increase is phased, just below 300,000 to possibly 673,000. So that's a significant increase that LED could be asking for next year that's unbudgeted at this stage. What the forum wished to understand at their first meeting was more details about that increase, and also options available to the council in possibly how that might be phased in a better, or how it might be afforded against the budget that we're setting for next year. But there is a real risk there that members may wish in that forum to make recommendations over and above what's currently in the budget. On a similar line, there are two key committees or working groups that are still meeting in terms of Queen's Drive and the Poverty Panel, where again recommendations could come through that aren't currently in the draft budget proposal. There's also the possible implications of Brexit as well. So what I'm trying to highlight to members is there are some quite key risks that could come forward with additional costs that you're unaware of at this stage because decisions haven't been made. What came through in the financial settlement, which was unexpected, was a new grant, a one-off grant from government in 21-22 in terms of, they called it a lower tier service grant allocation. And that's in recognition, it was for district councils, in recognition of the pressures that district councils are feeling at the moment in terms of their finances. And we can reflect that in the discussions I've just had with you in terms of our budget. So East Devon's allocation is 700,000. That isn't built into the budget at the moment. So what I'm suggesting as a strategy is you hold that 700,000 against those requests that are coming forward, and we can balance that up as we go through, and members can hold that sum as a mitigation against those key risks. That's the key elements in terms of the general fund budget. The report does talk about the future budgets, 22-23 onwards, but members, I've presented the financial plan, the medium-term financial plan, a number of times to members, so you'll be aware of what's in there. In terms of the housing revenue account, which is in section 2 of the report, beginning on page 134, what's being proposed is a budget that actually creates a surplus of 985,000. If you look at 2.6 of the report on page 136, the housing revenue account draft budget at the moment shows a surplus of 985. That has allowed for the normal expenditure on our housing stock in order to keep stock in good order, but has generated a surplus that will need to be allocated against a number of priorities. One is the replacement of right to buy losses during the year. One is around climate change, and also one is around additional works that we have in terms of meeting new compliance criteria on HRA properties. So although there's a surplus set, that is the norm. We normally have a surplus of around £1 million, and the Housing Review Board during the year will be working out its priorities on that spend, whether it be compliance work, replacement of stock, or whether it's in connection with climate change. There's some real tough choices to be made there, but various reports will come through a Housing Review Board. But basically, the overall budget for the housing revenue account is showing a surplus and keeping reserves at adopted range, adopted levels. So that's good. And then finally, the draft budget in terms of capital, 3.6 of the report gives you a summary of the capital position. And earlier on in your agenda, you agreed the recommendations that came through the budget setting and capital allocation group their recommendations have been factored into this budget, and the implications in terms of funding capital has been factored into your revenue budget as well. So I won't go into too much detail in that there was a lot of deliberation from that panel and working group in terms of determining what projects to go forward. They're now adopted in this draft budget. So I have rattled through that quite quickly, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Simon. I've got a very primitive one on page 138 about reserves, and it says the reserves are detailed in the budget book for members' information. How do members have a look at the budget book?
Yeah, the budget book's linked to the report. So at the top where you've got linked documents, there's it's highlighted there for the budget book. Just click on that and it will take you there.
Thank you very much. Oh, some of my clicks haven't worked today. Thank you. Brilliant. Right. Coming out to Councillor Steve Gazzard first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a question to Simon. Thank you for that run through, Simon, and I apologise if I've misheard or got some of the things wrong. What I'm going to ask is about council tax payments. Obviously, I think I'm correct in thinking that there are a lot of people that are having their payments stopped or can't pay it for various reasons at the moment. And obviously with a new lockdown that's coming in, I'm making the assumption that there's going to be probably even more people that are going to be asking to have their council tax payments put on hold. I think I heard you said that the government were going to pay 75% if there was a problem, but are you anticipating that there's going to be more people asking for, a stop, if you like, on their payments for until they can pay it? And will the council be able to cope with that? And did I hear you say that we're contemplating putting the council tax up by 3.41%? That's it, sorry.
So through the chair, in terms of council tax, good question, it's right to raise. So there's a number of factors in there in terms of we are seeing a reduction of our collection rate in the current year, as you indicate, Councillor Gazzard, and we've reflected that in next year's collection rate. So we're down at the moment just under 0.7% on our collection. So we factored that in to our income for next year when we set the council tax base. Another element to that is, as you say, people making more claims on us for council tax support. So that's the assistance we can give where people can't, in terms of affordability of council tax. So we've also, in our calculations, increased the amount of council tax support to offset individual council tax bills for next year. So that's built into our calculations. Also, the government, it's not the 75% scheme in terms of income protection that the government will give you on council tax income, but they will give us support on any deficits that we make in terms of the collection fund. So although we'll set our council tax, when we get to the end of the year, if there's a deficit on that fund, the government will help us let's spread that deficit over a number of years. And also they're looking at a scheme to help local authorities where there's significant reduction. So again, there are mitigations to the level of council tax that I've set in the budget to help us. And you did pick up correctly, there is an increase proposed of 3.4% council tax for East Devon's charge, which is the £5 per annum.
Do you want to come back on that, Steve, at all?
No. Well, yeah, I have to say that I am disappointed finding where we are as a country, that we are now going to be asking people to pay more council tax, and I find that a little bit distasteful. Everybody, including us, we are under a lot of pressure and strain financially at the moment, and I think it's the wrong time to be putting our council tax up. But that is my own personal opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Gazal, very much. Can I come to Councillor Jack Rowland next, please?
Thanks, Chair. I assume there's no non-cabinet members that wish to speak before we come into cabinet members, but
nobody's shown
if there aren't, to start off with, I wanted to take this opportunity to say thanks very much to Simon and his team, because I would imagine in his experience in local government, this must have been the most challenging period that he's experienced. And to be able to come up with a balanced budget with the proposals that are being put forward, I do applaud him, because as well as his team having to cope with all the grant decisions that are having to come through at relatively short notice very often as well, and the team have coped admirably with that and delivered every time so far. So congratulations from me on that. I think picking up on Councillor Gazald's point about the increase in the council tax, of course it is a difficult time, but if we still wish to provide the council services and maintain those, I think there has to be a dose of realism in this as well, that if we want to continue to do that, and I'm sure residents in East Devon are expecting that, and for us to go above and beyond that, particularly through the work that's being done through the Poverty Working Panel, or what may emerge from that, I don't see any other alternative, unfortunately. And I would imagine a lot of the parishes are also talking about increasing their council tax. I know from the Seaton proposal that I've seen come forward, they are definitely increasing theirs as well. But again, without additional support from central government, I do not see an alternative without having to cut some of the services, which would be more unpalatable in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Jack, very much for that. I'll endorse, if I may, very briefly, your thanks to Simon and his team, and also to agree with you and Steve. We'd rather not raise these taxes. It's a legacy issue. It's not only the nature of government not funding local government properly, it's that this council didn't raise council tax for many years, and so we're starting at a lower base than we would wish, and so we're playing catch up now. And it is a horrible balance between services and this raise. It's a £5 a year at the end of the day, which I know is a £5, but that's what it is. Councillor John Loudon, please.
Thank you, Chair. I won't go on it, because I was going to say exactly what you and Councillor Rowland have said regarding the disappointment that we need to do this and why we're having to do it. But I would propose that we adopt the report from Simon Davey.
Okay, thank you very much for that, John. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. You pretty much said what I was going to say. No one wants to put council tax up, but it's necessary. It's either that or cut services. National government has not given us enough, either historically, presently, or even in the current crisis. So it's a realistic, pragmatic necessity, but I'm happy to second Councillor Loudon's proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, let's come back out. Councillor Andrew Moulding, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I really wanted to just make a comment based on your statement regarding the fact that council tax hadn't been put up enough in the past. And I can't remember how many years it's been, but Simon Davey will, I'm sure, be able to remind me how many years it is since we neglected to put the council tax up by £5 or whatever the limit was. Because if we'd have gone above that limit, then we would have precipitated a referendum. And as you can imagine, that's a pretty serious issue. If you need to raise council tax above the limit, you straight away force a recommendation. And I don't think anybody in the council would have wanted that. And I don't believe any residents of East Devon would want that. And in all the time I can remember when we put the council tax to the limit figure, nobody, either within the Conservative group or any of the opposition parties, I can't remember anybody ever saying that we should go above the limit and force a recommendation. And I'd like Simon just to confirm the decisions we have made in the past regarding the raising of council tax.
Yes, certainly, Andrew. Thank you for that comment. When I commented, what I was thinking of was the years in which there was no raising council tax. Now, off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm guessing 2010 to 2015, I don't know, something like that. And the problem is we fell behind at that point because we were pretending to be a mini Wandsworth. And then when you quite rightly thought, oh dear, we do need to put them up, we were starting from a lower base. That was the point I made. But yeah, Simon, by all means, please come in.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's the confirmation. In terms of, I can't remember the exact number of years off the top of my head, Councillor Moulding, but basically I think it has been for about the last 4 or 5 years, the council tax has been increased to the maximum before a referendum is triggered. Prior to that, though, there was something like a 5 years freeze of council tax, but that was in line with government policy at the time in terms of if a local authority held its council tax, it was given additional money equivalent to the council tax increase. So that was the reasoning at the time. I believe the council decided to hold its council tax. But what it did do, as has been pointed out, is it keeps your council tax at a very low level then for every year that builds on. So that was the factual point.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that, Simon. Let's call that a score draw, Andrew, I think. Right, very good. Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder, I think, for that. So, Debbie, can you lead us through a vote, please?
Yes, of course, Chair. Can I just clarify? The proposal was to adopt, did I get to hear it correctly, Councillor Lamb? To adopt the report? I just wanted to refer you to page 122, where there is an officer recommendation there to adopt the estimates before they go forward to overview, scrutiny and housing review board. Can I just clarify that, please?
Yes, Chair. I confirm.
Yep. That's what we're voting on. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so members of the Cabinet, if you could please raise your blue hands or your yellow hands. I believe those are the ones you can see at the moment. And for the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. And I have 9 votes now, Chair, so that is unanimously agreed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for all your contributions, officers and members on that one as well. We now move on to agenda item 22, poverty, our response to the crisis. And we're receiving a report this evening from John Golding, our strategic lead for housing, health and environment. Thank you, John. After you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is a progress report essentially on the work of the Poverty Working Panel, but it also addresses the specific issues in the motion to council that were brought forward in December last year. So for the avoidance of doubt, poverty is recognised as a corporate priority for the council, and it does feature prominently in the recently published statement of intent and indeed the service plans that you'll see coming through to overview and scrutiny committee shortly. We recognise poverty as a cross-cutting theme involving a number of council service areas, and therefore we've recognised the need for a coordinated set of interventions, which the Poverty Working Panel are working on, and ultimately their aim is to produce a poverty strategy to bring forward to Cabinet within a few months. The panel have broadly agreed 5 high-level objectives, and they're looking at each of those objectives both individually and collectively, and considering what's good practice out there from other organisations. And we're compiling a series of actions which basically ensures that the particular issues in the motion to council are fully addressed. There has been what I've referred to as implied criticism that the Poverty Working Panel has not been working fast enough. And I did want to reassure Cabinet that the report refers to many things that we already do as core business in the council that are aimed at addressing poverty. So the fact that we haven't got a poverty strategy at the moment is not holding us back in terms of addressing poverty. The panel meetings have looked quite carefully at definitions of poverty, where we can influence and make greatest impact. They've carefully established the terms of reference, which I've appended to the report, and ensured that we have some degree of rigour and discipline in terms of how we look at poverty affecting people in the district and the response to that. The report considers declaring a poverty emergency, which has been highlighted in the discussions that we've had, and I've tried to pick up on all of the individual points that were mentioned in the motion to Cabinet in section 3 of the report, and the final section of the report really asks Cabinet that we continue the work in the poverty panel and bring forward a poverty strategy for Cabinet's consideration and hopefully adoption within, I'm hoping that we can complete our work within the next 3 months. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. It's a great report. I've read it very carefully. Thank you. Can I just ask a question in the current climate that another member has asked me about our Hardship Fund, and given that it does look as if this crisis is going to last another 4 to 5 months, we're likely to expect greater call on us for that. How do people apply to that? In what circumstances are they entitled to financial help and so forth?
So that's one of the things that Simon and Libby administer for us, and in fact it's something that the panel are going to look at the next meeting in some detail, and with the DWP as well. We are anticipating a greater call on that fund, so it may be, and as Simon alluded to it earlier, that there will be some additional costs that we need to consider for our budget when the poverty panel finally makes its recommendations.
Thank you, John, very much for that. Would anybody outside of Cabinet wish to comment or speak or ask any questions? So not at the moment. Yeah, Councillor Maddie Chapman, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask, have we got any more information on helping those suffering abuse? Because my understanding is that over the Christmas period, it has got worse. We did discuss this on the panel, and, you know, John Goulding did tell us that, you know, people were being taken out of the area by train, etc., etc. Have we done any more work on this? And have we contacted anyone to offer support? Because obviously in the whole of the district, there are quite a few families that obviously are in dire need. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. John, are you happy to come back on that?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Well, it's something that we do as part of our homelessness work, where often domestic violence leads to family breakup, which leads in turn to the need to provide accommodation for for people. There was some incidents over the Christmas period that our housing options team responded to. We're talking about 2 or 3 cases, but during the course of the year, we probably handled something more like 20 or 30 cases of family breakup, often associated with domestic abuse. And when the panel, which we haven't yet, look at the homelessness, rough sleeping elements of the kind of poverty agenda, we'll look at that in a bit more detail, and hopefully we can have some up-to-date statistics to demonstrate the current situation in the district.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Maddie, do you want to come back on that at all?
Well, yes, there has been a number of instances that I am aware of, and my worry is that the situation is getting worse, and is, as you said, Chair, this is likely to go on for a few months. I wonder if we should have an emergency plan in place. I don't know if John Goulding, on the team have sort of thought about this, but with the children being at home and in the abusive environment, I am really getting quite concerned with the reports that I am getting of people being stuck in a situation, and I can only see, some horrible outcomes coming out of this. Have we got an emergency plan if this goes on 3 or 4 months with this pandemic?
Thanks, Maddie. I mean, I imagine there's working with county as well, isn't there, on all of these issues, working across together. But John, back to you if I can.
Yeah, Chair, the emergency plan is effectively our homelessness work. So where there is family breakdown that results in homelessness, and as I mentioned, there was some cases over Christmas, we provide emergency accommodation for families that are fleeing if it's domestic violence, and there's a safeguarding procedure that we can invoke where we fear for the safety of either children or adults. So as you said, we work closely with Devon County Council and Social Services. So there is that safety net that exists.
Okay, thank you, John, very much. And thank you for that, Maddie. I've got Councillor
Thank you,
Jack
Chair.
Rowland next, please.
Thanks. I wondered whether Cabinet members and other members might find it useful, as reference was made a short time ago by you, to the Hardship Fund. And purely by coincidence, I did ask for some information earlier today about that, and Libby Jarrett's kindly supplied it, as in her usual fashion, very quickly. So thanks for that. So, Chair, are you happy for me to give an update as to where we are?
That'd be very interesting, Jack. Thank you.
Just to let people know that the total amount of that fund at the outset was £192,100, and to date, £88,761 has been spent to date, and that is in connection with 346 awards that actually involved 315 residents, because some residents had come back and asked for additional help. Now, out of that remaining fund that we've got at the moment, 21,000 is being used to support the Test and Trace discretionary payment scheme, because although central government supplied money for that, it was a finite amount, and that money has already been exhausted. So we're fully expecting to receive more requests of that nature. So some of that 21,000 has been put aside out of that hardship fund to perhaps meet that next challenge. So that leaves at the moment 82,000 in that hardship fund to meet some further requests. But obviously, with the situation it is at the moment, that could very quickly be used up.
Okay, thank you, Jack, very much indeed for that. So we have a recommendation, and thanks again to John for his report, that arises from effectively a referral back to us from council and then a request for the report. And the recommendations are that Cabinet supports the work of the Poverty Working Panel and encourages them to come forward with a draft poverty strategy at the earliest opportunity. Poverty Working Panel completes its thematic sessions and incorporates the learning into an action plan for inclusion in the poverty strategy, and that the poverty strategy includes the 5 objectives set out in the report in the original council motion, that no one in East Devon is to be destitute without immediate help, and nobody should be in involuntary poverty for more than 2 years duration. So that is what we're being asked to vote on this evening. Debbie, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the Cabinet can please raise their blue hand if they're in support of those recommendations, please. And for the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. And Chair, that is voted unanimously in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, John, and members for your contributions to that debate. We now move on to agenda item 23, the local development scheme and statement of community involvement that goes with it. We've got a report from Ed Freeman, Service Lead Planning, Strategy and Development Management. Over to you, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. So this report relates to 2 documents, 2 planning policy documents that the Council is required to maintain and keep up to date. The first of those is the Local Development Scheme, which sets out a programme and timetable for production of future planning policy documents. Essentially, this has to be updated on an annual basis, and this latest update, the main addition really is inclusion of a timetable for the production of the new local plan, which has been discussed and debated through Strategic Planning Committee. The second document is a statement of community involvement, which details how we will consult on the production of planning policy documents. And this is relatively minor tweaks to this since the previous iteration last year, in terms of obviously taking account of the move to more online consultations in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Both of these documents have been through Strategic Planning Committee late last year, and the recommendation is for Cabinet to recommend to Council that these revised documents should be approved and take effect immediately. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ed. Very grateful for it being comprehensive and brief. Councillor Blue Hands, please. Anybody from outside of Cabinet who would like to comment or make a statement in regard to that? There's nobody at the moment. So coming to Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to support the report and just recommend that we recommend it to Council.
Okay, thank you very much. I always think just for the purposes of people who can't actually see what the recommendation is, it is that Cabinet recommend to Council that the proposed new local development scheme and statement of community involvement as appended to this report should be approved and take effect immediately following approval. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Happy to second the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, can we go to a vote on that then, please?
Yes, of course, Chair. Members of Cabinet, if you could please raise your blue hands if you're in support of that proposal. And Chair, that is to vote unanimously in favour. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you again for that, Ed, and for all your work that you have done on that. We go back, it's like Doctor Who, I'm going back through time now to try and remember the name of the gentleman. Right, Councillor Matt Osborne, you're do a gargle, get yourself warmed up because you're on in a second. We come to item 24, Cranbrook Town Centre now. How are you doing, Councillor Osborne? Are you ready to rock?
Yep. I've been
okay.
Sat here watching avidly.
You have? Good. Okay. Hopefully we'll all be on the same page in the next 10 minutes. I suspect we will. But I think I'll hand over to Amanda and or Debbie to supervise this. I think you've got 3 minutes.
Would you, just before that starts quickly as a question, I wanted to speak on the Ingrams as well. Would you prefer me to do them both at the same time, or would you prefer them to be split?
No, come back on item 25 as well. That would be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, thank you, Chair, and members of the Cabinet. As some of you will be aware, I spoke at length pre-Christmas regarding the delivery of the town centre. So really, to avoid repeating myself too much, I'll give you the highlights reel. It's interesting to see that the item before involves community involvement and plans that you've just adopted, because as a town council, we did quite a large amount of community involvement in regards to the town council and the town centre delivery and how they would like that brought forward. In total, over 1,000 people responded to the consultation that we put out as a town council, which, bear in mind, our population in Cranbrook as a developing and emerging town is a very large percentage of the overall adult population. The numbers stacked out at 82% in favour of the delivery proposal that we put forward. This leads us obviously into an interesting quandary in regards to the town council, because having been a witness to the pre-Christmas planning committee meeting, there were some very valid points raised by members on there, but points where it felt to me as an observer and as a resident, we were, or you were on our behalf, going back to ask again and ask again for a better deal each time. And I kind of highlighted then my views on negotiation, having done quite a lot of it internationally. And my view was then that the key to successful negotiation is knowing when to stop, because an accord has been reached that's acceptable to all parties and they can support it. And I just want to go back to that and just reiterate the points behind that comment that I made then. Over 82% of over 1,000 residents in the town supported the proposals originally, which have now been improved by the hard work and diligence of the officers and by the insistence of the planning committee. The town council are unanimous in their support for this project. Town council all being residents and all being heavily involved in the community and directly involved as members of our community. And you now have a recommendation from your officers to support their original proposal to bring this forward.
30 seconds remaining, Mr. Osborne.
So I kind of have a question really to say, what more do you actually require in order to support this, as there seems to be a desire to keep pushing and pushing for more? And I would just like to say that we will pay the consequence for this if this isn't delivered in a timely manner and if the action causes parties to walk away. So I'd just like to end by saying and asking as a resident, on behalf of our residents, that you could please authorise and start delivery of this project for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Osborne. And I hope you'll, without in any way predetermining which way this vote will go tonight, I hope you'll accept and understand that we've come in as sort of like, you know, the new sheriff, and we felt very strongly that we really understood the position of Cranbrook Town Council and of the three members for the district at Cranbrook, Cranbrook members as well, really understood it, but that we just had to hold our ground. And your point about knowing when to quit, which is along with Clint Eastwood's line about a man must know his limitations, two of my most favourite quotes. So thank you for that. We've been very much on your side all along, but let us see what everybody else has to say about that. So I'm looking for blue hands outside of Cabinet or inside. Outside, delighted to see Councillor Kevin Blakey.
Thank you, Chair. I shall be brief. Makes a change, I know. An awful lot has already been said about this proposal, going back over the 2 strategic planning committee meetings and for a number of years before that. So I don't really want to go over the old ground again. We have the revised report that it is within the papers this evening. I think it's fair to say that this proposal is taking its final drink in the last chance saloon. And I'm sorry to carry on with the cowboy similes. I had no idea that Councillor Arnott was going to be bringing that in. And I don't want to labour the point, but this really is the moment to make a decision on the future of Cranbrook Town Centre. The question to Cabinet members is, do you accept that the proposal from the developers now is as good as we are likely to get? And do you accept that the vast majority of Cranbrook residents, as well as the 3 ward members that's already been alluded to, and the Devon County Council planning officers and the EDDC planning officers all find this proposal now acceptable? It's not perfect, but acceptable. And if you do think the same way, I hope you do, please vote tonight to allow this project to get underway. The conclusion that's in your papers on pages 165 to 166 makes the position, I think, very clear. It is now a deal that is supported by the officers, and it is the moment to make a positive decision and actually to be remembered in the history of Cranbrook for the right reasons. So thank you, and I will leave it to your judgment.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Blakey, and we are hearing what you have all said and what the officers have said in this report. Councillor Paul Miller was next, actually. Paul Miller, please.
Thank you, Leader. Happy New Year, Leader. Representing Exmouth, this is the first time I've ever spoken on this issue, but I think I understand a little bit about the pain and frustration local residents feel when they're told what's best for them and not feeling that they're listened to by people who don't represent the area on this council, which I think has happened for many years in the case of Exmouth. From a distance, I feel like I understand why Cranbrook residents and the ward members have been concerned as well during these negotiations. For years, they have been let down by neglect and incompetence by the previous Conservative administration. History is really important here. And if Simon Jupp's listening, I would advise putting the Boris handbook away, and rather than inaccurately accusing thoughtful and hard-working, independent Liberal Democrat and Green councillors of dither and delay, that he reads a document I've been reading over Christmas, a report from Devon County Council from back in 2014, which gave stark warnings to a panel of Conservative councillors, which included the serving leader of the opposition, of the issues preventing the delivery of infrastructure in Cranbrook, but the East Devon Conservatives ignored them. If anybody was responsible for the dither and delay in Cranbrook, it is Mr. Jupp's party. His intervention in the press was ill-advised. This new progressive administration is much less than a year old, and yet if an agreement is made to sign the MOU, which it might, it can point to the real gains referred to in this report as one of its most impressive victories of many so far. In 2019, Sir Hugo Swire, in what I recall as his only publicly politically frank moments in 18 years as East Devon's MP, despaired at how his Conservative-run council had refused to stand up to big developers for years. And I recall him when I was in Parliament in 2018 in a Westminster Hall debate, lamenting how the situation at Cranbrook had gotten completely out of control. And other frank admissions can be read in his wife's memoirs. Holding these negotiations in an open and transparent way caused public anxiety. It was always going to. The legacy you inherited, Leader, in the summer could hardly have been worse. As the 2014 Devon County Council report stated, developers are house builders, not town planners. When I reflect on the successive gains in the report tonight, I believe going back to the negotiating table has been the right thing to do on each occasion, and I believe it's fully in the best interests of Cranbrook. There have been gains in transparency, such as the publication of the viability notes, and there have been other more important substantial infrastructural gains in the report too, which I'm sure Councillor Ledger will refer to later. The East Devon Tories, true to form, would have caved in. They urged you to sign the MOU all the way back in October, and then you and Councillor Ledger went back and got a better one. So I think East Devon is going from a chumocracy to a democracy, and I'm loving it. Thank you.
All right, we needed entertainment tonight, and you've given it to us, Councillor Miller. Thank you very much indeed for that. I see Mr. Freeman has got a yellow and a blue hand up. Ed, would you like to come back at all?
I was just going to ask, Chair, whether you wanted me to present the item before you went into the debate or not.
What? Is there anything more you really want to add?
I was only going to verbally summarise what's in the report, so if you're happy that everyone's read the report, then I'm happy.
I'm pretty convinced that every single person here has read the report multiple occasions, so I'm happy with it as it is, unless members scream to the opposite. Councillor Kim Bloxham, please.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I should declare a personal interest. I've attended, as you know, many meetings with the consortium of developers facilitated by this council or Cranbrook Town Council, of which I'm a member, and I'm also one of the 2 EDDC members on the Cranbrook Strategic Delivery Board. Many points have been raised tonight and at the previous SPC meetings. I believe, having read the report and had discussions with Mr. Freeman, that some of the concerns, and in fact I think most of the concerns that were raised previously, have been addressed and updated in the current report. I've spoken at both SPC meetings, re my support for a proposal that begins to deliver a town centre for Cranbrook. So we're at a place where there's very broad agreement that the proposals on the table are acceptable. We know the county officers and members are in favour, EDDC officers and local members are supportive, the town council's in favour, and over 80% of the community indicated their strong support. I believe the time has come to make a decision in favour of moving forward with the proposals on the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I come to other members, can I come to Mr. Gordon Lennox, please?
Thank you, Chair. It was only just to remind you of minute 94 from strategic planning. You asked for a recollection or a reminder that that was to be debated at this particular item.
Thank you very much, Henry. Okay, can I come out to Councillor Steve Gazzard, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to actually congratulate the team for in my view, managing to get a better deal for the residents of Cranbrook. And I'm sure that you will make the right decision tonight. But I think if you hadn't keep going back to the developers, you wouldn't have got where you've got to date. So I'd just like to congratulate you all for the good job that I think that you've done for the residents of Cranbrook.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gazzard. That really was our intention of this administration. So now, Ed, I feel a bit guilty now because you really only had about a paragraph. Are there any highlights of this you'd like to? Of effectively, what happened was at our strategic planning's request was that there was just one further push on negotiation. I mean, do you want to sort of distill what came from that was perhaps different from where we were 4 or 5 months ago?
Happy to, Chairman. Yes, I had planned, had assumed you would want me to just go through what's changed since Strategic Planning Committee on the 15th of December. The main changes really was trying to address the concerns that were expressed by SPC. Primarily, these seem to be the viability issue. There was a shortfall of around £2.2 million in infrastructure funding, as well as a significant shortfall in affordable housing provision. The consortium claim this is justified on viability grounds, but have not provided the open book viability appraisal usually required by the NPPF and our own policies to prove their case on that point. To try and address those concerns, the consortium have enabled us to put in the public domain a viability sketch that was provided earlier in discussion, so that there is at least transparency of the arguments that they're making and the case they've put forward in terms of viability, which is fundamentally that Cranbrook has not performed as well as expected and that returns are lower than anticipated. and therefore they simply claim they cannot afford to meet our usual policy requirements with regard to the town centre. I would, however, caution members that without more information in the form of the usually required open book appraisal and an independent assessment, as officers, we're unable to confirm that position. Other changes since the December Strategic Planning Committee are that there's been amendments in relation to restrictions on the sale of food from parcels that would come to the council to be delivered. Members will be aware that Morrison's Supermarket are sat in the background looking to deliver a supermarket as part of proposals within the town centre, and obviously are concerned in terms of competition. Previously, a floor area restriction on food retailing within the town centre was proposed of 1,000 square feet gross floor area. That has, through further negotiation, that's now been increased to 1,500 square feet in terms of gross floor area. And we now believe as officers that that would provide sufficient floor space to enable independent grocery stores to come forward. And further information that's come forward from the applicants, I think, confirms and provides evidence to support that view. I should, however, say that it will prevent further supermarkets of any significant size coming forward within the town centre, but those limitations are time limited, and so I think it's within 10 years of the transfer of the land, or 5 years from the delivery of the supermarkets, those limitations would fall away, and they don't apply to things like cafes, restaurants and coffee shops. It is literally food retailing in its traditional sense. The other thing to mention that Strategic Planning Committee were concerned about, I think there was a lot of conversation about the size of the town square. The consortium has said that obviously there are opportunities to look at this potentially in terms of increasing the size of the town square on their land, but that is part of ongoing negotiations in advance of planning applications to come forward for their proposals. They're also quick to point out that the layout of the space means that the town council offices are directly opposite the town square, and there are opportunities to close Tillhouse Road and use some of the space in front of the town council offices in order to enlarge that space for particular events in the future if needed as well. But as I say, the town square is part of a planning application that's yet to come. So really those are the key changes since the December Strategic Planning Committee meeting. If I just quickly draw members' attention to the recommendation, there are a number of things to bear in mind here in terms of the recommendation is to go with the offer that's being presented. However, there are a number of things that need to be accepted as part of that, which is that in order to achieve the required mix and quantum of uses, we believe the council would need to acquire land within the town centre under this memorandum of understanding, and also that in order to acquire that land by agreement from the developer consortium, the council would almost certainly have to pay a market residential land value, which would be in excess of the land's value for the purposes that the council will be looking to use it for. So there's a need for members to understand that these are key factors in terms of this decision, as well as this issue around the viability appraisal, which, as I say, does not comply with our usual policy requirements. The recommendations are detailed at the start of the report, obviously, and ask members to consider the updated offer as presented, and note the progress on the Cranbrook Town Centre supplementary planning document, which is the alternative approach to taking forward the town centre. Recommendation 2 relates to the bullet points that I've just mentioned and those principles that members need to be comfortable with in order to move forward with the memorandum of understanding. The final recommendation relates to the supplementary planning document, because there is an issue whether or not you are minded to agree the MOU or not, as to whether or not we wish to proceed with the supplementary planning document. In any event, if you sign the MOU, then there is obviously an opportunity to use that as a means to engage with the community on how the parcels that the council would take on the delivery of come forward. However, obviously there are other means of doing that outside of an SPD if that's members' wish. Hopefully that's a helpful summary of where negotiations have got to. Thank you, Chair.
That's really great. Thank you so much for that. Again, excellent summary and concise, Ed. Thank you. I had come back into Cabinet, but I'm happy to nip back out briefly, if it's okay. I've got Councillor Andrew Moulding.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I listened carefully to Councillor Miller's comments regarding the history of Cranbrook, which I would like to take members back even further if I can, because many years ago when the Labour government were controlling the country, there was a need for additional housing that was perceived by that Labour government in the East Devon area. And it was evident that it was going to be located somewhere to the east of Exeter. And I'm proud that initially there were hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of objections to the idea of creating a new town east of Exeter. But then by the time we got to the first planning application for Cranbrook, there was only one objection. And we went ahead, we dug the first sod back in, I think it was 2011. And as I say, I'm very proud that the former administration of East Devon District Council have been able to provide such a young, vibrant town as Cranbrook. It's provided homes for local young people who would probably never have had an opportunity to get on the first rung of the housing ladder. The school, the primary school, was delivered at a very early stage, which enabled young families to give their children the opportunity of a brilliant new primary school, which filled up within 3 or 4 years. Since then, a further community college and an additional primary school have been developed. There's an area centre of shops, a very nice public house, and now we're moving on to the next phase. And I'm pleased that we have a proposal in front of us, which I hope is acceptable to the Cabinet, so that the town can get the town centre that it very much deserves. And I'm pleased that I mentioned last time at the meeting that we needed to improve the size of the town square, because I believe that's what Cranbrook needs. And again, I'm pleased that the negotiations our officers have made have enabled the consortium to come forward with some new ideas which will go through the planning process. So I hope, Mr. Chair, Leader, that this item can be approved this evening and that the town can get the town centre that it richly deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Moulding. And we're looking forward to the bunch of flowers from Cranbrook Town Council and indeed from your former administration, if this does go through tonight and we're able to get on with finishing this. Somebody very close to this said to me, I asked him, what went wrong at Cranbrook? And he said, you don't roll out a new town to a developer's vision. So, Councillor Kevin Blakey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I've neglected to declare my interests at the beginning of my little bit. So just for the record, I'd like to record the fact that I'm a member of Cranbrook Town Council, of the Cranbrook Strategic Delivery Board, and as such have been in discussion with the developers over a number of years. My apologies for not including those earlier. Thank you.
Thank you so much for recording that for the minutes, Councillor Blakey. Right, we are now inside Cabinet, and the first hand I saw was Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep it quite brief, but I just want to take members back to around August and just basically inform them of what we've achieved from then until now with this new deal. So there were a wide range of issues with Quantum that I feel that have now been overcome. We've managed to acquire TC1 and move the extra care facility onto that, which has just made better placemaking throughout the scheme. We've had an increase in Section 106 contributions from the developers. And most importantly, I think we now have the option to we've got options on the land. So as the town expands, the district has the chance to allow the town centre to expand with it. We've got a commitment for a low carbon housing in the area, and we've nailed the developers down to an actual timeline so that we understand when these are actually going to be delivered. They're not just pie in the sky. They're going to be done in 5 or 10 years' time. We know when they're going to be done, and they will be done to that timeline. So just to kind of coin the phrase that Councillor Osborne used earlier, I do feel that an accord has been reached. And this is something that I'd be happy to sign with the MOU. So could I propose that we accept all the recommendations? And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Ledger, for that. I'll come to Councillor Paul Hayward next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to sum up my little bit just by thanking officers and particularly Councillor Ledger for their tenacity and their thick skin, because they've had a lot of stuff thrown at them. Almost all of it completely unnecessary and unwarranted, but they've come through it professionally, and we are where we are. I'd like to thank Councillor Miller for that perfectly composed summary of the reality and history of the situation, and I thank him for it. I'd like to thank the local Twitterers who have been demonstrative in their populist, ill-judged and antagonistic tweets, and I hope all of them, and I hope they're watching. If not, they can watch it on YouTube afterwards. And there's 3 in particular, that they're big enough and grown up enough in their roles to admit they were wrong and to offer an unreserved apology for their public statements and admit that we're in a better place than we were before. Councillor Miller summed that up, but I don't hold my breath. But I hope they would. And finally, it's fair to say that a hard lesson has been learnt here, and one which everyone in this room and everyone in Cranbrook is going to bear the burden of. If you build a town on the basis of profit instead of over the basis of people, you end up exactly where we are today. And that's an irrefutable truth. Councillor Miller alluded to it back in 2014. And for all the justification of what Cranbrook currently has, it is a housing estate with a few amenities. What we are going to deliver and what the people of Cranbrook are going to deliver, because they're the intrinsic thing here. They live there. They want these facilities. What they will get is a town centre that's fit for now, that's fit for the future. But if it's left to developers, you won't get that. Developers don't care. They don't care about people. How many times must we say this? They are interested in profit. That's it. Once their saddlebags are full, they will ride off into the sunset and never look behind them until they get to the next place where they can do this over and over again. That, you know, I'm not going to say I don't blame them. That's the way it is. But let's never kid ourselves that we will entrust to do this again this way. That's the lesson I think we need to walk away from this, that other people are now going to have to pick up the pieces for a terrible mistake that was made. But it will be corrected, and it will go forward in a spirit of compromise and cooperation. And I can't really say much more, but I think it'd be nice if there was some recognition that this administration has fought hard and has actually delivered a better deal for the people of Cranbrook. And it would be nice if people were grown up and accepted that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks, Chair. To start off with, I'd like to formally second Councillor Ledger's recommendation.
Thank you.
And also applaud him and the officers for what they've achieved, because it is a much better deal than was originally on the table. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what's been said, very valid comments, but I, as you can probably tell from my accent, am not a Devonian. And from the early 60s to the mid 80s, I did live in a new town So in the early years, I was very much in the embryo status of that new town. But the difference was that was led by town planners and development corporations that ensured that the proper infrastructure was in place. And if there's a lesson to be learned from all this, it is not to go down the same path again that's been experienced with Cranbrook, because quite frankly, although I'm obviously not a resident, I don't live near Cranbrook, but I've become familiar with what's been happening over the last 9 months. And quite frankly, it is a classic example of how not to develop a new town. So I fully, I've already seconded the proposal, and I fully endorse what's going to happen now.
So the host muted me just then, so I don't know what's going on there. Right, thank you very much. Let's just, we need to keep it quite short now. Can I just go to Henry Gordon-Lennox quickly, please? I can see your blue hands up, Henry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just to confirm that the proposal is to agree the principle of the MOU and give the delegated authority that's set out, and presumably in relation to recommendation 3 that it is to move forward with the SPD.
Yes, that's a very that I was just looking at that myself about because we're asked to consider, and we're actually want to agree, don't we, on those
Yes.
3? Yeah. Okay, is that your I'm sure it is, but is that your understanding, Councillor Ledger, as well? That's what we're voting on.
I believe the what came out of the 15th was that we put the SPD on hold, subject to the signing of the MOU.
Okay, so we agree 1 and 2, and we put on hold the proposed supplementary plan document for town centre to guide development in the town centre. That's what we'd be voting on. Okay, is that clear, Henry, at your end?
Yes, thank you. So you're agreeing to and effectively adopting the minute from strategic planning to hold in reserve the SPD.
Yes,
pending signature of the MOU.
Okay, great, thank you. Megan, Councillor Armstrong, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. I just wanted to say, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I agree with much of what has already been said. I was going to actually second Councillor Ledger's proposal, but I've been beaten to it by Councillor Rowland, so never mind. But I just wanted to speak in my capacity as the portfolio holder for homes and communities to actually support these recommendations on behalf of the residents who, in my view, have been waiting many years for this town centre, and we just need to get on with it, basically. Whatever has gone on in the past, we just have to look forward and move on. And we just need to do 3 things, I think. We need to listen to our 3 district council colleagues. We need to listen to the Cranbrook town councillors. And most of all, we probably need to listen to the residents of Cranbrook and help to give them the town centre and the thriving community which they need and deserve, as Councillor Moulding has already alluded to. So that's all I wanted to say. I just want to confirm my support for this, and I would fully agree with it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Megan. Yeah, and nobody could disagree with any of that. That's, you know, mother and apple pie, isn't it? What you have to add to that is tough negotiation, and I think that's what we've managed to achieve here. Before we go to the vote, I've got Dan Ledger's hand up there. So Dan, you coming back for one more?
Just one quick one, and it's just really, I think there's been a lot of thanks to officers and myself for this, but I don't want to neglect the 3 ward members. I've sat in countless meetings, and I know previous to myself being in post, they've sat in countless more, and they've fought tirelessly for their town and their community. And they do need thanks for the work that they've put into this and for getting it to the stage that it has, because it wouldn't be in the state that it is without them. those the 3 ward members and the strategic delivery board. They really have done some fantastic work, and they need recognition for it.
Right, absolutely, here. We better vote for this then, haven't we? Otherwise it'll be a bit embarrassing.
Chair,
yes, Councillor Hayward.
On the back of what Councillor Ledger has just said, could I ask, could that be formally minuted, please, within this?
Yes.
Would that be all right?
Yes, okay. So Cabinet would like to thank the 3 ward members and the Town Council for their consistent, well, just thank them, I think. Let's not make anything up on the spot for gallantry, that'll do it. Okay, great idea, thank you. Right, let's go to the vote, Debbie, please, on this.
Yes, of course, Chair. So members of the Cabinet, if you could please raise your blue or yellow hand if you're in favour of the proposals. Thank you. And that is a unanimous vote for, Chair. Thank you very much.
Huzzah! Let's get on with it then. Brilliant. Thank you so much to everybody concerned. I'm really personally thrilled about that. Somebody called me Napoleon. He hasn't turned up at this meeting apparently for having tried to resist this previously. So I have said to him before, I think I'm more of a Captain Mannering than a Napoleon, but anyway, job done. Right, now delighted to come back to our previous speaker from Cranbrook, Matt, if you're still there, who I imagine is in an even sunnier mood to talk about the Cranbrook Sports Pavilion delivery. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Ingrams facility. Obviously, while we're talking in such positive veins about delivery for Cranbrook, I just wanted to put a little bit of background around the Ingrams project. I noticed from the report that's been put to you for consideration that there's a third potential option missing, which was originally proposed by the Town Council, and I'd like you to consider. And that is that we, as the Town Council, are the party who supervised delivery of the Ingrams project. I'd just briefly like to give you some information around the reasons why I think that's a valid proposal, and then leave it up to you guys to discuss and decide. So for your info, currently the Ingrams facility is supporting on average 220 children of varied age groups per week, and is the most used facility in the town for kids. I currently coach 2 age groups for the local youth team at Ingrams. There's no medical room, no hot water, no proper toilets, and an uneven surface car park. All of the current fixtures and facilities have been provided with the support of the Town Council by the local football club, and we are desperate for this facility as a community, but in typical Cranbrook spirit have made the best of it we can. At the primary meeting attended by your officers, the Town Council, the consortium, the FA, ECCB and Sport England and myself, there was a huge gap between the costs the consortium proposed and what everybody else believed the project could be delivered for. I believe the gap was 300,000 from a previous project I'd been involved in and had delivered, supported by ECBB, and 1.5 million that the consortium was saying it was going to cost to deliver originally for their scaled down version. Due to this, we tabled the option for the consortium to simply pay what they were committed to and allow us to build the project with the budget we were able to raise. On the back of this, I then went and sought numerous quotes from firms specialising in off-site construction. After working up detailed initial plans with Richard Philpson in my offices, these were all turnkey quotes, complete with full project management from start to finish and built to the budget we had available. This strategy then became the foundation for future negotiations, which have now led to a fund being agreed and now negotiation around who will be responsible for delivering the project. I believe there are concerns around the Town Council's capability to deliver this project on behalf of our residents, as EDDC as an authority has more experience in this. While it's undeniable that EDDC may have delivered more projects than Cranbrook Town Council, I would point to our recent track record in negotiations and supporting EDDC.
30 seconds remaining, Mr. Osborne.
I would also like to ask the questions: who suggested for the consortium to put their money where their mouth is? Who worked on the original designs and spec? And who gathered all the quotes and timescales for deliverables? Whose involvement in the SCLDP led to Sport England funding being put forward? Officers of EDC have been involved and have been extremely supportive and valuable, but I think it's fair to say that we would not be where we are without the aforementioned involvement from the Town Council. I believe the town council have the resource and the experience and capability, and by working to a budget with a project management turnkey delivery, we can deliver this project within 16 weeks once planning consent is granted, maybe in time for next season's football season. I'd like to ask that we are allowed to finish what we started and complete the project, as we have a direction and ability to work with all parties involved successfully and believe we can enable the delivery, thus freeing up your valuable resources to be focused elsewhere. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much again, Councillor Osborne, for your contribution this evening. There is nobody from outside of Cabinet at the moment wishing to speak. There is Councillor Kim Bloxham. Just to advise you, Kim, I know that Councillor Loudon is preparing to come up with a recommendation that I think would be in accord with what Councillor Osborne has just said. But over to you, Kim Bloxham, please.
Thank you, Chair. And in that case, I won't repeat all the things that I was about to say in the interest of time this evening, because I was going to support Councillor Osborne's recommendation that there is a third option there. But you've reassured me that that may well be coming as a recommendation. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kim, very much for saving time on that. So, Councillor John Loudon, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I hope I actually am now going to deliver what it is that you think I'm going to deliver. And I hope I keep the smiles on the faces of our colleagues from Cranbrook. I heard very much what Councillor Osborne said. And yes, I would hope that we can now allow you, the town council, the ward members, the residents to finish what you started. And I hear what you say about the need for the youngsters. And I was taken by what the officer's report said. And I'm very much of the view that option 1 within the report needs to be grasped. And I suspect it's probably some of the parts of that would be what you require for your sports facilities. So what I'm coming up with is a recommendation that, if you bear with me, it's not long, but the recommendation is, on the basis of the views expressed by Cranbrook Town Council and their willingness to take responsibility for working excuse me, with the NCP to deliver the enhanced requirements, Cabinet resolves that option 1 represents the right approach to deliver the best changing room pavilion facilities for the residents of Cranbrook. Cabinet therefore gives delegated authority to the Chief Executive, in consultation with the portfolio holder for economy and assets and the portfolio holder for strategic development, to agree appropriate arrangements to ensure the transfer of land and or the facility to Cranbrook Town Council, together with the identified Section 106 funding that is available, to be put towards delivering the enhanced facility. In the absence of being able to secure the necessary arrangements, a report shall be brought back to Cabinet for a further discussion. In other words, let's see if we can sit down, talk to the town council about how we can how they can deliver this. And if the officers are not given the relevant assurances, then obviously the matter needs to come back, Chair, to this committee, Cabinet, for us to consider where on earth we go next. But I would hope that Cranbrook residents and their representatives see this as a positive recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Loudon. Councillor Dan Ledger.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, subject to obviously the town council meeting the Sport England conditions and the conditions of the Section 106. I would love to see them fulfil what they want to see for their town. So I'm happy to second Councillor Loudon's proposal.
Okay. So I can't see any other speakers on that at the moment. Now, Mr. Gornetz, I believe that Councillor Loudon has sent you through that's already, so you've got that there.
Yeah, we've got the wording. Yeah.
Okay, I think Cabinet, that's pretty clear, unless anybody likes to holler that it's not. In which case, Debbie, can we go to a vote for that, please?
Of course, Chair. So members of the Cabinet, if you could please raise your blue or yellow hand to show your support of those proposals. Thank you. And Chair, that is a unanimous vote for. Thank you.
May I therefore suggest that we and the grateful members and people of Cranbrook celebrate this historical moment by having a 5-minute comfort break, which most of you look as if you desperately need after 2 hours, 19 minutes, or however we've been here. So see you all back here. Let's kick off again at 8:25, if that's okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair.
Ready when you are, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. I'm ready too. Are we all sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin. I'm always doing this. After about 2.5 hours into a meeting, I'm inviting Andy Wood to come forward to give a report. I'm so sorry about this, Andy. And then sometimes we just say, actually, let's cancel that. But I'm delighted to introduce agenda item 26, towards zero carbon development in the West End, our service lead for growth, development and prosperity, Andrew Wood. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. This is a follow-up paper to one that came to Cabinet in September around supporting large-scale delivery of low-carbon development in the West End. The paper itself, the report has been prompted by a bid that was submitted to the government's heat network investment programme on Monday. Details of that bid are set out in section 2. You can see it's quite a fulsome bid, but that will enable the delivery of a connection to a forthcoming energy from waste plant. So in that sense, there's also a relationship to the final item on the agenda today as well. Just wanted to highlight timings. Principally, there will not be an outcome, or there will be an outcome in a couple of months' time. This isn't the end of the road by any means. There will be further work required if the application of the bid is successful to further develop the proposals, the structures, the investment ready for to go in the ground during 2022-23. And that will support the entirety of the expansion of Cranbrook through to the future home standard, 80% carbon saving standard. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Andy. And as you say, this is early stages, really, isn't it? It's a process of exploration that we're being asked to endorse this evening. Any members from outside Cabinet wish to speak on that? That looks like no. Cabinet, anybody wish to speak on that? Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Andy and his team for putting this together. It is a very, very significant bid. And as the report shows, there are significant risks, high risks. There's issues of investment, there's issues of partnerships, there's issues of legality, as you'd expect with anything of this size. So I'm happy to put forward my proposal for the recommendation with one slight amendment, in that it would read, it is recommended that Cabinet notes the bid has been made rather than endorses at this stage, because I'm very keen to receive that further report when the outcome of the bid is known, further technical work and a detailed investment proposal. That's not to say that this Cabinet or this administration or this council is nothing but supportive of something that's going to deliver zero carbon and energy efficiency and benefits to the people of Cranbrook. But for my part, I'd just like to replace the word endorses with notes at this point. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. Would anybody else like to speak, or if not, perhaps second Councillor Hayward's proposal there from within Cabinet? Cabinet, are you there? Are you alive?
I believe Councillor Marion Rixham is
Yes.
waving to indicate a second, Chair.
Lovely, and I now see a blue hand. Okay, yes. Marianne, do you want to speak at all, or are you just indicating you're happy to second?
No, I'm just happy to second. I think you've made a very good point.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. In which case we have a proposer and a seconder to note the bid that has been made to the Heat Network Investment Programme, and to receive a further report when the outcome of the bid is known, further technical work has been completed and a detailed investment proposal has been developed. Debbie, can we now vote on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. So members of the Cabinet, would you please raise your blue or yellow hand if you're in favour of that proposal? Thank you. And Chair, I have 8 votes for. Councillor Young, I'm assuming that you're either abstaining or in disagreement. I can't see an indication.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Young abstaining. Thank you. That's carried, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Moving on to agenda item 27, about the Exeter and East Devon Enterprise Zones Ada Lovelace building in the Science Park, where we need to amend sorry, saw a blue hand flashing there, amend the funding agreement. And we've got a report on this from Naomi Harnett, our Enterprise Zone Programme Manager. I think, yeah, Naomi, we can see you and we can probably hear you.
Okay, thank
That's
you,
it,
Chair.
gotcha. Yep.
Okay. So very briefly, the grant towards the construction of the Ada Lovelace building was initially approved by East Devon District Council Cabinet in January 2019 as part of the Enterprise Zone programme, borrowing against future business rates generated within the Enterprise Zone. Through the construction process, substantial made, and approval is now sought to vary the funding agreement to reflect these changes and changes needed to ensure the building is lettable. This will provide savings to the Enterprise Zone programme of 660,000. Thank you, Chair.
Well, that is both concise and unbelievably welcome, Naomi. Thank you very much for that. We're saving some money somewhere. Terrific. I've got Councillor Dan Ledger on first, please.
Just to say that I need to declare an interest as I'm chair of the Enterprise Zone Board, and I forgot to do it earlier, so apologies for that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's noted for the minutes. And would anybody from outside of Cabinet wish to speak or comment? That's no, and so therefore Cabinet, anybody like to speak or comment or to propose the recommendations that we reduce the grant funding to be invested in the Ada Lovelace building from 1.1 million to 660,000, and that we delegate authority to the Chief Executive to make payments in respect to the project, subject to the completion of appropriate legal documentation and consultation with the Strategic Lead Governance and Licensing. Councillor Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. A question to Henry Gordon-Lennox, if I may. Would it be appropriate for me to speak on this, Henry, given I am a director by virtue of my role of the Science Park? Would that be okay, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's I mean, this is effectively a council appointment, so you've noted it as a personal interest. You may wish, I mean, it's a totally up to you, but you may wish to not vote. But I don't think there's any issue with you speaking.
Thank you very much. Well, on that basis, Chair, I mean, I'd like to thank Naomi for her work, all the people at the Enterprise Zone, all the board of the Science Park, and particularly Dr. Sally Basker, because as a driving force between saving money, Sally is up there with the very best, and I take my hat off to her. This is welcome for us. It means that Enterprise Zone funds can be used elsewhere, and my lord, will we need to be using them to drive forward our economy going forwards. So I absolutely welcome this, and also the fact that some of the requests have been turned down. Naomi's made a very good argument that some of them are just a bit too far and that can't be reasonably justified, and that shows good openness and transparency on our part. Yeah, I'll leave it as that. I will be abstaining on the vote simply because of my role, but I just wanted to applaud what's been done and then say let's crack on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you. Can I just check with Henry as well? Am I okay to move the recommendation as I'm a shareholder representative?
Yes, that's a different position, so that's fine.
Fine. Thank you, Henry. In which case, I would like to move the recommendation as shown in the reports. And I see this very much as a large step forward in the continued success story of the Exeter Science Park. And I believe already that there is a large interest in already taking space there. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. I'd like to endorse that as well. Councillor John Loudon, please.
I second Jack Rowland.
Thank you very much. So I think that's all the speakers we have from within Cabinet. So let's go straight to a vote on those recommendations, please now, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. Members of Cabinet, if you could please raise your blue hand if you're for the proposal. Thank you. And Chair, we have 8 votes for and 1 abstention. That is carried.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you, Naomi, again for your work and for your report. Coming now to agenda item, and we're getting near the end, 28. The Section 106 and Community Infrastructure Levy Internal Audit Report done for us by the South West Audit Partnership. So I'd just like to invite Ed Freeman, our Service Lead for Planning, Strategy and Development Management, to discuss that, please. Ed.
Thank you, Chair. So just briefly, South West Audit Partnership have undertaken an audit of the Section 106 and SIL system. And are able to give only limited assurance with regard to the spending collection work at this time, because they've identified that there is a number of administrative tasks that are out of date and need to be caught up on, shall we say. They're keen to stress that no monies have been lost or returned to developers as a result of this, and it predominantly relates to a lack of resource in this area in terms of staff resource involved in populating the Excom system that members will be aware that we've spent some time installing and putting our information onto that system. And that's partly because of the redeployment of the key officer into the community hub, really as a necessity when the first lockdown hit back in March last year. The report makes 2 priority 2 recommendations that I just draw members' attention to. These relate to appointing additional temporary staff resource to help to get the system up to date. And I think given the findings of the audit, as officers, we would accept the need to do that now. The other issue relates to the updating of guidance on the participatory budgeting process, which I think has been raised by a number of bodies in the past in terms of that process and the guidance. So happy to look at that when resources permit. So within the report, as officers, we've accepted those recommendations and the other 2 priority 3 recommendations mentioned in the report, and look forward to moving forward with taking those actions and addressing the issues raised in the audit report. I would say in terms of the recommendation that it's just for members to note the internal audit report as it will be reported to Audit and Governance Committee at their meeting on the 28th of January, and then on to Strategic Planning Committee for them to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ed. I was particularly keen for this report to be brought forward earlier than it had originally been planned, and I'm very grateful for the work that's been done by SWAP and our officers in consultation with them. I think this is an important moment. I think it's a potential watershed for S106 and SIL and East Devon. And I'm hoping for an uptick, as they say, in performance moving forward. It may be, and I'll leave this to other members of Cabinet, it may be that the recommendation, so I had suggested that it should absolutely go to Audit and Governance and to Sam's committee first for them to look into this in depth. They're equipped for that in a way that we're not, and that it also go to Dan's Strategic Planning Committee as well, because they will want to mull the implications and how we move forward practically. So in effect, it's rather a nice, I'm delighted we've got a scrutiny function on that, and then we've got effectively a what to do next function as well. Dan, Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks. I'm getting a sense of deja vu on this subject. As a previous member of the Scrutiny Committee, the subject of Section 106 and the resource that was allocated to it did come through. And at that time, I thought we were getting to the point where we were having an improved situation. But once again, I think because the in-depth experience of this subject resides in the hands of one employee to a large extent, who has once again been moved on to other work because of the pandemic issues. This is why we found ourselves in this same situation again. So I'd like to fully move the recommendation as it's put here so that we can actually make sure this is properly resourced and we don't end up again in another year's time having this same conversation.
Yes. Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one really slight question: is if we keep seconding the key member of staff into another area where she has the expertise, wouldn't it make more sense that we leave her where she is and that we get a temporary member of staff in to do the other role for the lockdown measures? And is that something that someone else, well, another committee could scrutinise, and what would be the best option, and then bring that back to Cabinet? I don't know if that would be A&G or another committee.
Well, I think what we should do, Dan, is put that in as a recommendation from us as well. Now, obviously, we can, through the minutes tonight, we can go back to the relevant officers and just say that's how we'd like to see that go. I would suggest that we add in the recommendation. I think we should say, full stop there. Cabinet also recommend that the additional employees suggested by the audit are employed. In fact, I tell you who's coming here. The cavalry's arriving over the hill. Mark Williams, come on then. In you come, please, at this moment.
Sure. Hopefully, just to confirm for Councillor Ledger's perspective, the employee was seconded with the first lockdown, but that's not now the case and is now back working. The other issue with regard to the temporary staff, I've had a thought about that today, and if an appropriate steer is given by Cabinet, because we can fund it from administrative reserve and it's temporary posts, and I'm happy that I can probably take that forward straight away.
Okay, thank you. So we just need a wording for that, don't we, for the recommendation. Cabinet recommends that we move to employ the temporary staff at the earliest opportunity, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be fine for me.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Did you get that, Henry? Good, because I can't remember it. Lovely. Okay, thank you. I think then we're in a position we have to now. Do we have a is there somebody happy to propose that? The original proposer, are you happy to accept that into the proposal?
I'm happy to accept that as part of the proposal. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon, and the original Councillor Jackson.
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. In which case, Debbie, let's go to a vote on this, please.
For the Cabinet, if you'd like to raise your blue hand, please, if you're in support of that proposal. And Chair, I have 9 votes for, so that's unanimously agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much, committee and Ed and officers. Item 29 is now the financial monitoring report 2020 to 21, month 8 November 2020. Now it says here, I'm never sure if this is true, a report from John Symes, finance manager. Yes, I see John there. Go on, John, your dice.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Yes, so the report provides an update on the financial position to month 8, so to the end of November. The high-level summary is that both the general fund balance and also the housing revenue account balance are both being maintained within the approved adopted levels. But as mentioned earlier in the budget report, with the use of the general fund reserve covering the general fund shortfall, it does leave that balance at the lower end of that adopted range. So the general fund is currently predicted as an overspend of 1.386 million, and this is detailed on pages 162 and 163 of the agenda. This includes additional government grant of 1.81 million that we've received, and it also includes, following our most recent review of fees and charges, income of 1.1 million, which is from the government's reimbursement of fees and income scheme. So that's included in there. But however, following new restrictions this week, obviously that's going to have to be reviewed again, and we'd expect that number to change. The table also includes the additional LED subsidy at a maximum level of 1.339 million. However, since the production of the report, the National Leisure Recovery Fund has been launched, which included a notional funding allocation for East Devon of 280,000. So there is possible income from that fund, but as it stands, that's not being included in these figures. The report also then provides details regarding the housing revenue account. That's from section 3 from page 163. So as I explained, the HRA reserve balance is being maintained above the minimum adopted range. And at month 8, the prediction is actually adding a further 214,000 above the budgeted level of the HRA reserve. The final section of the report covers capital expenditure to month 8. So that just provides a high-level summary of that, and also some detail around financing of the capital programme. So that's it from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, John. Members, would anybody like to comment or speak on that from outside of Cabinet? There's nobody there. So coming back into Cabinet, would anybody like to pick that baton up, please? Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask a question directly to John? On item 3.3 that you just referred to, so the HRA balance. So on that 3.3, it says the effect on HRA reserve, HRA balance is 4.059, and then an additional 1.141. But then it says predicted general fund balance. Is that supposed to be HRA balance there? It is. That's fine. That's just for clarity.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah.
No. I mean, that's not actually my query. I just wanted to check that was my understanding of it. I wasn't misreading it. So the following statement. So then it says the HRA balance is required to be maintained within the adopted range of 2.1 to 3.1, projected to be 5.2. Excuse me for asking an incredibly stupid question, but I'd rather ask than not know. So what would be the plan for that 2.1 million? Do we just wire it to somewhere else to be held in anticipation, or do we use it for something? I'm sorry to ask again what appears to be, I'm sure, is a stupid question, but if you could just answer for me. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can, Chair. If the sum will be held there, I think it goes back to what Simon said in the earlier budget report, that will be just taken into consideration through the HRB discussions and the priorities on that money.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay as an answer for you, Councillor Hayward?
Absolutely fine, thank you. I mean, I picked up what Simon said earlier, but I just wanted to get absolute clarity in case anyone says we're just hoarding money. Well, obviously we're not. We're not in a position to hoard money, and that every penny we have is being used to the best of its ability. We make it work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Paul. In which case we have a recommendation here, which is to, I'm just looking for what the recommendation is on this. It is that it is recommended that Cabinet, oh no, that's Ada Lovelace's recommendation. So I'm flying all over the place here. Let me get to the, where are we? Sorry, I've got
Do you want someone to read it for you?
Thank you. It's recommended, I believe, that the variances identified as part of the revenue and capital monitoring process up to month 8 be acknowledged. Councillor Loudon.
I'm happy to propose that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Loudon to second.
Oh, I don't know about that. Oh, all right.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Debbie, let's go to a vote on that then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so Councillor Jack Loudon has unfortunately had to leave the meeting, so that leaves 8 of you. Councillors, if you'd like to raise your blue hand if you're in support of that proposal, please. Thank you. And that's 8 votes for. That's carried. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Very good. Yes. Poor old Jack. Good. Right. Thank you. Let's go on to the item 30, the annual Treasury Management Review 2019 to 20, 1st of April 2019 to 31st of March 2020. I'm guessing a bit here. I'm thinking maybe Simon's picking this one up, or is this John again? Is it you, Simon? It's John.
John.
Okay, John. Yeah, thank you.
I'll keep this one very brief, Chair. So the annual Treasury Management Review document is a report that's required under regulation. The actual review document itself is quite prescribed in what's got to be in there. It's very technical in nature, and we are providing support from our Treasury advisors on this. The 25-page review document covers capital expenditure and the financing of that. This is all for the financial year 2019-20. Also covers borrowing need, the strategy for borrowing investments, and also the outturns for these. There's an executive summary at the beginning of the document that basically covers the main prudential indicators. I don't intend to go through each and every section of the document, but on a high level, the report confirms that the council has complied with all the prudential and treasury indicators that were set and approved as part of the Treasury Management Strategy Statement for 2019-20. And specifically, the report confirms that the council has not exceeded its statutory authorised borrowing limit. So I think I'll leave it there, but if there are anything else, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, John, very much on that. I've got Councillor Dan Ledger on that one.
Just happy to propose that we note the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor John Loudon. And thank you for others who volunteered. I should just ask, does anybody from outside Cabinet wish to make any comment on that? No, in which case, Debbie, can we go to a vote, please?
Of course, Chair. Members of Cabinet, if you could please raise your blue or yellow hand if you're in support, please. And Chair, that is a unanimous vote for. Thank you.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us. We're nearly there. We've got a very technical one now. The agenda item 31, the proposed deed of variation to the lease of units 3 and 4, Salterton Road Industrial Estate in Exmouth. And we've got a report here from our service lead for place assets and commercialisation, Tim Child. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try and cover this off in less than a minute, you'll be pleased to hear. So the report relates to something which is very much bread and butter for my estates team. Generally, the work the estates team do, they generally do using delegated officer powers. The issue that we have with this particular piece of work is that a legal document's needed, which is referred to as a deed of variation. And the problem is that neither the ability to enter into that isn't delegated neither to officers or to portfolio holder. Hence the report that you have in front of you this evening. You could say it's a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and it is, I'm afraid. The report itself should be self-explanatory, so I will move straight through to the recommendation if that's okay. And the recommendation is that Cabinet resolves to enter into a deed of variation on the provisionally agreed terms and conditions set out within the body of the report, with delegated authority being granted to myself in consultation with portfolio holder for economy and assets to agree specific terms. That's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Tim, for that. And that's what we're here to do. Don't worry. If you need a sledgehammer to crack a nut, we're always here for that. Would anybody like to speak on that from outside of Cabinet? If not, I'll bring it inside Cabinet, and perhaps I'm looking for a proposer for that recommendation. Councillor Hay, would you like to speak or just propose?
Yes, if I may, Chair. I mean, I'm happy to propose and look forward to working with Mr. Child on that respect. And as I mentioned earlier, I have been in receipt of correspondence from officers and the lessee. And I'm glad we got to this point now. All I'd like to say is that within the correspondence going backwards and forwards, there was quite a serious issue raised about a member of staff, which I'm, pleased to say was completely unnecessary, unfounded, and has been refuted. And I'd like to go on record to say this council has that officer's back 100%. We are where we are. We're now dealing with it. It's been attended to. But having reviewed the correspondence, I felt that accusation was completely unfounded, unfair. And so, yeah, we're moving on. But and the report is very clear, and actually ultimately puts us in a better position when the time comes to renegotiate. But yeah, I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. I genuinely, as you know, don't know any details of this at all, but I absolutely appreciate and support if there's an officer who's been attacked in some unwarranted way. I'm really grateful that you've come out in such a public way and supported them in this matter. Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, nobody else is there with a blue or yellow hand, so Debbie, can we go to a vote on this, please?
Of course, Chair. Members of the Cabinet, if you can please raise your blue hand if you're in favour, please. And Chair, I have 8 votes for, so that's unanimously carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Debbie. Okay, we now come to our final item, which is the resource and waste strategy, waste management strategy for Devon and Torbay. And we've got a report from Gareth Borton, our recycling and waste contracts manager.
If I may, I could take that. It's a very straightforward report to approve the draft resource and waste management strategy for Devon and Torbay for public consultation. Basically, this is a committee of districts plus Torbay Unitary that work together to share best practice and to work with Devon County Council, who is the Waste Authority. The report requires us to endorse and agree the recommendation for it to go out for consultation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young, for that. Sorry, I had Gareth on my script, but I'm delighted to hear from
I gave him the night off.
You did? No, yeah, absolutely. Shouldn't you be watching a football match tonight? Or was that
1-0.
Well, I mean, one has to ask how you know that in the context of a cabinet meeting, but never mind. Right, so can I, are you wishing to propose that, Jeff? Then?
Yes, if I may propose it.
Okay, can I look for a seconder from Marianne Ritson? I think is seconding that as well, or speaking, Marianne?
No, I'd just like to second Jeff, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we then move to the vote on this, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members of Cabinet, if you'd like to raise your blue hand, please, if you're in support. And I have 8 votes, Chair, so that is unanimously carried. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. That was the last agenda item. Before we go, I'm going to give a 30-second homily. Today has been the most astonishingly productive day for East Devon District Council. There was an enormous planning committee earlier today, for which I know a number of people here would have been present or contributed, and a huge amount of officer input, amazing standard of debate, really seriously technical, constructive, open, conflicting, everything you want from a democracy. I've been delighted by the extraordinary volume of work we managed to get through tonight on Cabinet, and I'd like to again thank members and all officers. And the reason I'm saying it is because we probably all know that in Washington at the moment, the fascist Trump has incited riots and the invasion of the Senate. What a disgusting, low snake of a man he is. And I'm incredibly proud of this council, that it stands for all the democratic principles that oaf does not understand in any part of his compromised and corrupt body. So well done, all of you here tonight, and thank you very much. Now I've got to give a formal closing words. That brings the meeting to an end. So please bear in mind we're still being recorded at this stage until we are notified that we are actually off air. So thank you very much to all staff again, and good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night, everyone.